Hello, friends. Today is January 8th. It's Tuesday, and it's time for another episode of the Level 1 News.
You know, Krista, I was thinking yesterday about what a strong, modern, independent woman you are, who doesn't need no man. Would you like to make a formal announcement that you are strong and independent?
Strong and independent and engaged, bitches.
Oh,
Nice.
Ring by spring. Only 5 years later.
So what have we got in today's episode of the news? Not CES news. I know that.
Well, there's a tie-in to CES in one article, kind of.
vaguely, but this is government and security news.
There's a lot of news. It's amazing there's so much government news with the government shutdown here in the U.S.
Well, it's not all U.S. government news. Some of it's about China. But we do,
All right.
As one does.
we like to start out, if possible, with Mr. Ajit Pai. Because everybody loves him. You know?
He's America's man.
He's a
big
man of the
draw.
people. The rich
And he's basically doing like, you know, the walk-off home run where you know it's going out, so you don't even jog. You just stroll and you soak it in.
people. High five the other players or whatever. The headline is, Ajit Pai thanks Congress for helping him kill net neutrality rules.
Look how happy he looks in this picture.
The Democratic effort to reverse the repeal fell short as the congressional session ended. But a new congressional session is beginning with more blood and guts.
It is a new congressional session where the Democrats have the House, is that right? The Republicans have the Senate. So, but it is over. That net neutrality battle is over. He has won. All they can do now is override it with a new net neutrality law.
Yeah. I mean, it's not wrong. The argument that it's like, well, look, the internet hasn't imploded. Net neutrality, we didn't really need that. We can take a light touch approach. But it's kind of a circular argument because it doesn't remember, like Wheeler was like, I would like to take a light touch approach to internet regulation. And then companies started doing all sorts of terrible things. And then they were like, okay, we're going to make the rules. And so it's almost like nobody ever talks about what led to Wheeler doing that in the first place. And I feel like we always have to be reminded of that, which was not in this article.
But they are still doing terrible things.
Yeah, well,
like they're fighting the municipal broadband worse than they ever did. They're doing some of the...
T-Mobile has been caught red-handed doing some stuff. That's going to play out in a court case probably.
Well, they're throttling. We've seen some instances of that.
There's-
I don't think they'll really spin that up yet. I think 2019 will be the year of the rape of net neutrality.
Yeah, two of those things will be mentioned there. But another thing is that a lot of this happens behind closed doors. Like, Comcast can go to Netflix and say, look, we're going to have some negotiations, but you're going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement that has really severe, egregious penalties if you talk about it, because it will color the public opinion that, we're doing something bad by double dipping into customers.
Well, Mr. Pai, he enjoys the fruits of his efforts. He's celebrated, and now he's going to get some much-deserved rest.
He's going to see. Oh, wait, no, they're not going to CES because the U.S. government is shut down. He issued a memo that's like, I was going to be at CES to talk about some stuff. The CES organizers have taken his talks off of the agenda. He's not going. And he cited the reason as government shutdown. Now, last year he didn't go because he cited people were unhappy with him.
Well, I thought he got death threats. Let's be clear.
No, it wasn't just him. The CES people and the government security people were like, no, people want to kill you.
You can't just go
send you
places,
here.
bud.
You know what else is shut down with this whole shutdown thing? The FCC entirely.
Yeah, the entire...
Would you like to complain about some Comcast shenanigans? Guess
You're
what?
not going to.
There are a couple of parts of it that they consider critical, which really, but the rest of them are just going home. So,
Hopefully they'll get back pay.
you know who probably
what they
is
want.
most upset about that news? Ajit Pai's family.
Oh, burn.
Well, we talked about Amazon and their facial recognition system, and law enforcement, generally at a more local level, have been super interested in it. I think it was like a local police department in Florida that demoed it. We never heard anything else about that. I think that's still ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the new year it restarted or whatever. But anyway, they are now getting some more high-profile customers.
Amazon's software is going to the FBI. The FBI is trying Amazon's facial recognition software. Now, we don't know anything about this, But the specific example cited by this article is the Las Vegas shooter, where they had to go through all of the footage, and they had like 24/7, it's like 8 staff people or something going through basically continuously. And it's like, oh, the Amazon software could do that in 24 hours or whatever. The thing that falls short, though, is that they didn't actually do it. Like, presumably they have the footage, and now they have the software from Amazon. How long did it actually take, and what was the accuracy? It seems like that test would be real easy to do, and this article doesn't have that.
Well, we often will come along, there'll be a story, like a Jeep Pie stories, that just makes you just viscerally angry. Did you guys see the viral video of the cop shooting the little wiener dog?
Oh, that would make me angry.
Oh my God, it's way worse than that, because there's I kind of understand, because the dogs were harassing people, and this guy was just refusing to acknowledge the cops, and the cop was like, "Come over here and talk to me," and he's like, "No, I don't have to do that. This is my property." And the cop's like, "You will do it." He's like, "No, I won't." And the cop's like, "Oh yeah, your dog's being aggressive," and just shoots the dog in the face.
Oh.
And you just get that, like, I just want to rip that man's eyeballs out, and I don't even like dogs. This was one of those stories. It was a man who, his wife got a speeding ticket because of a yellow light to a red light.
It was too short.
So he went around the city and timed them and proved that they were being manipulated. And he was fined $500 for claiming that he was an engineer. He has a bachelor's in engineering.
His job title is software engineering.
But he wasn't state certified.
So it's totally different, obviously.
Clearly, they were just abusing their power because they got called out on doing something that in itself was illegal, or at least immoral. But finally, some good news.
Oregon unconstitutionally fined a man $500 for saying, "I am an engineer." A federal judge has finally ruled.
This is a bizarre.
Now, how slowly did the wheels of justice turn here? So, like 2014.
She got the speeding ticket in 2013.
I remember when we reported this story, and I was like, "Wasn't that ages ago?" Like,
yeah.
Well, that was we weren't even doing this in 2014. So it had gone on for a while.
We covered it at some point, though.
Well, that was. So he didn't do his crusade till 2014, and then it, went through the bureaucracy. I don't think they fined him till maybe like 2016 or something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's not an engineer, he can't do this kind of thing. And it's like, as a citizen, like, if you can show that something is wrong, great. I mean, for the purposes of a lawsuit, this seems fine. This was definitely a bureaucratic overreach. I really hope that guy has like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in legal fees that he can recover from the state.
Well, they didn't mention anything about any civil penalties or anything like that. Just that he doesn't have to pay the $500.
I really, whoever had that idea probably should, like, to fine him for that, should probably be removed from their position.
Oh, they should be removed from the human population, I believe. And here's some rare good news from a source that you would never, ever expect to get free and open source software from.
The NSA to release a free reverse engineering tool, Ghidra?
Which, by
Good
the
guy,
way,
NSA.
Ghidra is property of Toho Company. That's the monster from Godzilla. Somebody owns that. Can they just use that? I guess it's a different, like...
The NSA unironically names their software after a monster from Japanese.
He has, I think he has 5 heads.
The only one I remember was Mothra.
That's got to be a reference to the Five Eyes countries. That's just got to be.
Could be, yeah. I think he shot lightning bolts out of his mouth. He was very powerful.
Well, this software is not as powerful as IDA Pro, but they're hoping that the people pick it up because it will be open source and make it better, make it a little more bug free. So it's apparently a good tool from the contractors that have used it, commented on it for this article. So maybe we can download it and take a look. Maybe Level 1 can do a video and be added to yet another list.
Yeah, well, it is open
I thought
source.
we'd just get check marks next to our name on the one big list.
I would expect it to be
like gold stars.
Like, coming from the NSA, the first thing you think is, oh, they're going to use this to track researchers, but it's open source, so somebody would find that. I don't know.
A bunch of really awesome researchers and a bunch of bored 13-year-olds are going to be what's on that list.
Well, I'll tell you one of the, I owned just a tiny bit of Bitcoin, so it hurts me to see it crash and go down. But one thing I liked about it was the silence of the Bitcoin sycophants. Good Lord, were they vocal. And
Hodl.
but they are not yet totally silenced because they're still filing lawsuits.
NVIDIA has been slapped with a class action lawsuit tied to the cryptocurrency implosion. So what happened here was NVIDIA told their investors, hey, we're on the pulse of cryptocurrency. It's cool. We got it. We're going to be able to turn on a dime with the demand here. So when the bubble, implodes, we're not going to be left with a ton of inventory. What that actually meant, apparently, was that
We're going to be left with a ton of inventory.
we're going to be left with a ton of inventory that we're going to pawn off onto our partners who probably don't want anything to do with it either. And NVIDIA's stock has suffered significantly.
But they also soared significantly before that.
Yeah.
So it's not as big a crash as it seems if you compare it to pre-crypto craze.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like a revision to the mean.
Yeah, I don't agree with the lawsuit.
But they did.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, but they were telling people at the top, hey, don't worry. This is here to stay. So, I mean, listen, it's gambling. If you're playing the stock market, you're playing the lottery. So they will lie as much as they can. And maybe they didn't even know. I mean, I don't think they would have purposely wounded themselves like that. So they probably believe their own hype.
Well, there's a lot of gamers that have gotten some really deeply discounted 1080 Ti's, and those sold out pretty quick, from what I understand. So, yeah.
Well, in this country, we have a lot of crazy lawsuits. People want to blame the gun when somebody gets shot. They want to blame the car manufacturer when somebody gets killed. They always want to blame the person with the most money. And you know who has all the money is Apple.
Literally Apple. The Fifth Circuit Court has said that Apple cannot be held liable for a car crash caused by someone reading text messages. The legal argument here was amazing. It was like, look, the person using the Apple phone basically has a Pavlovian response to text messages, and they will read while driving. So Apple knows that because they filed a patent for a device or software or something to detect when somebody is driving to prevent them from using their phone. And the argument here was, well, because Apple knew about that, we think it's reasonable to conclude that, somebody in their customer base would be doing this, and Apple should be responsible. And the judge was like, no, that's not reasonable.
It's a personal responsibility thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't pick up your
What
phone
is-
when you're
turns
driving.
out-
What filthy phrase did you use, Krista? We don't say that in America anymore. And moving on to across the pond to Germany, I think this is the beginning of a lot of embarrassment.
Yes.
Because one reporter who had gone through, I think he described it as like 3%, said he had already found major stories in this dump.
So the Vice headline is hundreds of German lawmakers have been targeted in mass cyber attack. Apparently, some hacking group had been targeting the German politicians, basically every political party except for the
literal neo-Nazis.
The
Yeah.
far right guys, yeah.
and they've got personal photos and credit card numbers, stuff that goes way beyond their government employment. Now, something about this does not add up. It's probably either a nation state, or it's probable that it's either a nation state or there's some kind of internal system that Germany is using to spy on its own people, and that's actually what got hacked.
It wasn't just one kind of hack either. They were in their Outlook, they were in their Gmail, they were in their personal financial accounts.
Their iTunes accounts.
It was crazy.
iTunes.
And
What
it-
music do they listen to?
Probably the reason the far right one wasn't hit is probably because the nature of what the stuff they're into. They're super paranoid,
Yeah.
and they're encrypting,
Not
and they're,
using
like,
devices.
They're properly two-factoring and stuff like that. So, which is hilarious that the one entity of government that takes security seriously.
But the people that probably shouldn't, yeah.
I don't know much about that political party, so I can't judge them. But certainly based on what the media tells us, they're a bit of a fringe group.
Maybe somebody that is local in Germany knows a little bit more about what's going on can fill us in the comments engagement challenge.
Now, this is where we get two sets of comments from both sides
Arguing.
that are completely polarized.
Well, I'm going to make a level 1 prediction, and it's we're going to find out that the people that are responsible for that hack are not the obvious people, which is like Russia or China or something.
But it'll come from a Chinese IP address. Well, speaking of China, Larry Kudlow, who is a White House technology advisor, has some implications.
The implication.
I read this article more than any other article in this week's news, and the White House advisor Kudlow says that Apple technology may have been picked off by China, and he's talking about, Apple's having a hard time. Their sales are down. China has said, oh, we should, encourage everybody to buy Huawei phones, blah, blah, blah. He didn't mention a thing about the tariffs and the whole Huawei executive arrest and the stuff going on in Canada. I mean, that's really what set it off. Like, that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back amid all this other stuff. But he didn't even mention anything going on with Canada or the Huawei CFO, which I feel like was the catalyst. I mean, that really was the straw that broke the camel's back to, sort of have the nationalist thing to be like, stop buying iPhones, let's all buy Huawei phones. Why would he not mention that?
Who do we need to get arrested here in America to stop people from doing that?
Tim Cook. Tim Cook needs to be like exposed to some sort of like, I don't know, something that everybody will be like, oh my gosh.
No, it's a Hydra. I mean, because
cut off one head, more come back.
Right, yeah.
Well, Johnny Ive's going back to be in charge of design because of, Apple's freaking out because they're not making as much money as they're making money hand over fist over foot, and now they're just making money hand over fist, and they're like, damn, what happened?
It's because they charge too much for their products.
Pretty much. Oh, and
this is someone who owns an iPad. It was too expensive for what it was.
Well, there's more about that in tomorrow's episode. So we've talked about this before. In a nuclear surveillance state, warfare and espionage have changed dramatically.
Yeah.
It's much harder to fight wars because a button ends all that. It's mutually assured destruction. And it's, unless you're like, just beating on the Middle East, which is what we all do. Or Southeast Asia.
It's like the youngest sibling.
Take your aggression out on Southeast Asia.
If you have to go to Southeast, if you can't go to Southeast Asia, you go to the Middle East, just to work out your aggression. But spying, we talk about facial recognition and all these biometrics. Spying's getting harder too. So what do? You hack. And what is the pinnacle of hacking? Probably AI, which is why those in power live in fear.
It curbs on AI exports? ? Silicon Valley fears losing its edge. So the Commerce Department is considering national security restrictions on artificial intelligence. Some worry that it could stunt this industry in the U.S. This is spooky similar to how encryption was treated in the late 80s and 90s, because encryption was classified as a munition, which is, that's not necessarily a bad thing. AI could be classified as a munition. And through that, they regulated the export of programs with strong encryption. So like you could export 56-bit encryption, but not 128-bit encryption. So there is historical precedent for this. But I think that it didn't work for encryption. And so I don't think there's any reason to think that it will work for AI where it failed for encryption.
Well, in China, you are not allowed to tweet at all. The firewall actually blocks it. But of course, as we all know, giant walls aren't super effective in the modern age. Donald Trump?
Topical.
But
relevant.
So people use VPNs and they tweet but it's not the plebs of China don't seem to be in on it. It's more like the technologically advanced and the higher social classes. So when they find out that you're tweeting, they have a new tactic.
Chinese censors go old school to clamp down on Twitter. They knock at your door. So this talks about how a guy had made some posts on Twitter, being critical of the government. They showed up and demanded he take the tweets down. He didn't. So they deleted all of the tweets on his account. Literally all of them.
He basically gave them what are you going to do about it? And they deleted his Twitter.
And they showed him what they were going to do about it.
That's probably better than beating him with a pipe wrench. I mean,
well, you don't know that that's not what they did later.
Yeah, they could still activate the pipe wrench plan at any moment. That's not off the table. But for now, just get that stuff out of there. And they talk about several people who have also gotten visits. They actually came to that guy's work, not his house. But other people have been visited at home, and they do talk about how it's kind of chilling. But it's funny that you're already doing something you're not allowed to do, but then you take it a little too far. So.
I can't wait for that to come to the West.
Oh, yeah. Well, they wouldn't leave you to talk about the results. You'd go straight to a black site.
Yeah.
And get waterboarded probably. Well, speaking of China, they have done something very impressive, and we talked about this in previous weeks. They were going to try to put a lander on the far side of the moon. Well,
Here's the news story for you. They were
Mission
successful.
accomplished.
This is exciting. China makes history as the first to land a spacecraft on the far side of the moon. This is genuinely exciting news out of China. This is a huge engineering feat. And they explored a crater, I think, and they're looking for water, and they're doing some other stuff. So this could be good prelude to, a manned mission in the future. And so, of course, NASA responded.
Yeah, when I see something like that, I think to myself, damn it, we're the moon people. What are we going to do about this, NASA? And NASA says, we got you, fam.
So
You didn't have your transition in time.
no, they put out the announcement. They're like, no one has set foot on the moon in almost 50 years, except for China with their robot. That could soon change because
That's not a foot.
Yeah, well,
That's a landing claw.
That's a computer,
a single claw or a wheel.
So, working with companies and other space agencies, NASA is planning to build a moon orbiting space station and a permanent home.
Now they've got
Just to flex on China.
Well, they've got a smart plan here, and that is they want basically an international space station orbiting the moon, and so they're going to be a hub for all these, SpaceX, Blue Origin companies.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, just come and dock with us and pay a small fee of, $500 million.
Easy.
Fuel up. And they're going to expect those people to be the ones to build the facilities on the surface of the moon.
They're basically just building a gas station, is what you're saying.
Essentially, yes.
They had some mock-ups there too. I mean,
The
mock-ups
Oh, yeah,
were
yeah.
compelling.
I didn't see that.
Which is weird because they have mock-ups for the thing that they're not going to build. But so there would be a capsule. And,
Where's the thing?
Yeah, they had a
There
so
it is.
here you
Oh,
go.
that looks cool.
It's like, oh, I'm in the treadmill.
It looks like a tiny house.
Yeah, it is a tiny house.
Oh, it should be on exploring alternatives.
And I imagine this is like a big circle. So this is just one unit out of a bunch.
Yeah. The regolith is a good shield for radiation because otherwise there is none.
It's like it kind of reminds me of the space things in Empyrean, where like you'd find the random trading post with the aliens. It looks kind of like that.
You think they stole their idea from that?
They're like, listen,
The designer.
this little indie game.
But that, so you wonder, what are people going to do on the moon? Well, the idea is they know there's ice up there somewhere. They just don't know how much. So you'd be like an ice farmer or miner, and you would turn that into oxygen and fuel and water to give to the private guys who are still exploring, basically.
Do you keep Doritos and beef jerky too?
I don't know if there are pockets of Doritos and beef jerky on the moon, but there could be.
Well, I'm thinking,
We
it's
don't
like
know.
a gas station. You gotta have your beef jerky, coffee drinks, energy drinks.
Like the bad keychains.
Yeah,
Remember when
weird body jewelry.
Of course, this is no longer the case, but for a while there, after cassettes were phased out for CDs, you could still get cassettes at gas stations, and they were
Could
terrible.
you?
Yeah,
That's probably just old stock.
yeah. Well, speaking of social media and countries that don't want you to use it, Iran has joined the ranks. Well, I mean, they were already there.
Iran
but
has joined the game.
They've added a new one to crack down on.
Oh, I just hit the thing.
Iran is cracking down on social media with a ban on Instagram, except for their president still uses Instagram, so mixed messages.
I like to imagine that their president does like makeup tutorials on Instagram, like the thought makeup,
This is weird because the guy, so they put up this resolution to get rid of it, and then they didn't pass it or something, and then it timed out. So it gave this guy the power to just automatically exercise it, and he did. But there wasn't much fanfare to it, and a lot of prominent people are still Instagramming.
Yay,
So-
VPNs.
I don't know, but add that one to the list. They think it's it spreads bad ideals and stuff like that.
In some parallel timeline, there's definitely like a situation where like U.S. political forces are telling U.S. citizens, hey, you should provide a VPN to people in other countries because they're not as free as you. And like that's some kind of like, I don't know, information warfare or something. But now it's just like, no, we don't. Let's not mess with that.
Well, they don't want the idea of VPNs to be mainstream.
But they have to be.
They like knowing where you are by
Yeah.
your IP address.
And knowing what your Twitter login is so they can log in and delete it if things get real dicey.
Yeah. Well, I always say when we look at those Chinese stories that most of the American government is looking at that and being like, oh, yeah, I want that.
Yeah, we should do that.
That sounds good.
That is not...
The thing is, here people are armed with the teeth, so they have to like be a little more sneaky about it, I think.
Yes.
Oh, they're going to fix that soon enough.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to security, let's talk about password managers. That's where you, instead of trying to remember all those passwords or just let Chrome remember them, you put them in a nice, secure place with software that's unhackable.
2.4 million Blur users, that's the password manager, have found their data exposed online. The company says the data breach didn't expose any actual passwords, but stored inside the Blur accounts, but it did expose the encrypted version of the password that you use to access Blur. I mean, an online password manager, it seems almost like it's a good idea. It's almost like a drive-through liquor store.
It's not a terrible idea.
Those exist. I mean,
They do exist.
There's a way that
Florida
those
and
can be
Kentucky.
used responsibly, but it could also promote irresponsible use. I can understand why somebody might think that, but they did at least sort of in their mea culpa. They were like, "Yeah, we're supposed to be a company that prevents this kind of thing. We're really embarrassed." So,
Yes, you should be.
what else can you say? Well, Krista, I know you are a big fan of the weatherchannel.com.
It's weather.com.
And,
They have the highest quality clickbait,
The
in the
clickbait
business.
is good. Now, do you use the app on your phone?
I don't use the app.
Well,
no.
that's good because it tracks you.
Yet another instance
That's
of
not
if you
surprising
can
at all.
possibly use the web version, don't install the app. So it's like the Weather Channel app has been sued over claims it sold location data. The Los Angeles City Attorney's Office issued a cloudy forecast with the possibility of civil penalties for the popular Weather Channel app on Friday.
I like this story because, like, that subtitle, it's like, oh, really? Really? Did you make that? But this person was so proud of that, they led the first line of the story with that same thing. Andrew Blankstein.
We see you. We see you.
Yeah, it turns out there's some compelling evidence in this, and it turns out that this app may have been just selling as like literally monetizing every little piece of data that
I
it
think
possibly
I think it's
could.
more than evidence. I think it's pretty much
Yeah. Open
ironclad.
and shut.
And they were not just like they were taking your location every time you moved. One guy was tracking it and found 1,400 instances in a day where they hit his location. And the idea is to do that to location targeted advertising.
Yeah.
They actually built their own version of that in order to sell.
Meanwhile, they can't get if the
Maximizing
weather
time.
is right anymore.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
weather.gov is not bad.
the weather game.
NOAA.gov is what you're thinking of.
The weather
Weather.gov's
game's
goes.
expensive, and I understand you have to try to make your money back somehow, but that's not the best way. Now, they do give you a very vague terms of service line or two in the app about how they're going to do that, but when they ask you to turn on location, they sell it as, we need this to tell you what the weather is in your location. So Los Angeles thinks that's enough to go forward with some penalties.
We need millimeter accuracy data on your location, not just your zip code or your 5-mile radius. We need to know, and we need real-time updates on where you are.
Because it might be raining,
Yeah.
but it might not be.
It might start raining where you are, and you wouldn't even know without the app because you wouldn't feel it.
I'm all of a sudden drenched. I don't understand what's happening.
Oh.
Thanks, Weather Channel app. It's raining.
Speaking of, so you gave me that weather radio the other day? It actually went off yesterday.
Oh,
when I
what
plugged
was
it
the
in.
alert?
It was just a test.
Oh, yeah.
The emergency
I was
broadcast
going to say,
system.
yesterday was a beautiful day.
Yeah, it was
That
gorgeous.
happens every week at that time.
Yeah,
Well, you might think,
it'll be a good
shame
time.
on you, Weather Channel. How could you do this? But it turns out they're not the first or the only to have that idea.
This popular weather app collects too much data, security experts say. Now, this is in New Delhi, India, but it's a weather app built by a Chinese group. So it's collecting even more data than the Weather Channel app, and it's also subscribing people for paid services, and well, trying to. It's trying to like use their data to sign them up for services, I guess, that the people that wrote the app can get a commission for. So it's almost like fraudulently using your data for other things.
And it's not just location. They're stealing everything that they can. So,
Don't install apps on your phone. Don't know what to tell you.
yeah, weather apps, I would say almost always a bad idea. Apps in general. If you can use the website, I would never use an app.
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
don't you have Twitter installed?
nope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've always
Why
used the
would
web.
you? What's
Yeah.
the difference?
I'm surprised that you don't.
The app actually is a lot faster, better. The web interface has been gimped deliberately by Twitter.
Are you tweeting so furiously that you need that extra speed?
Well, sometimes the app glitches and does weird stuff. So it's like you like brings up the keyboard and then closes the keyboard. It's like I can't type in the text box.
How can I tweet?
You just have to use emojis.
I can't even live like this. Well, this is a great story, and we can almost, I guess this doesn't really count as AI, but it's a beautiful thing when one automated system attacks and destroys another automated system.
This one's probably not good, though, because it'll lead to more spam. But Motherboard has the article that researchers have fooled reCAPTCHA, which is Google's, CAPTCHA service, with Google's own text-to-speech service. This new method has 90% success rate at tricking the robot into thinking that it's human. So if you're not familiar with CAPTCHAs and anti-spam technology, when you have to type, it shows you the mangled picture of a word and you have to type it in, that prevents robots from spamming whatever service it is that you're using that you
because
see
they
that.
will spam.
Yes. But somebody could be visually impaired, and so Google offers an alternative for that, which is an audio CAPTCHA. And so the audio CAPTCHA will have noise and other stuff in it. But when you recognize the audio CAPTCHA, when you listen to it and type the word in that way, you can just feed that to Google's own assistive technologies to convert that speech back into text. And that's what they did here.
80% success rate, which with CAPTCHAs, you can always try more than once.
Yeah.
So at 80%, even if it fails twice, that third one's almost guaranteed to hit.
Yep.
So
that's not good. That means there's going to be an uptick of spam.
now these guys were,
I hate dealing with spam.
they were decent bros, and they let the reCAPTCHA team know what they were doing and how good they were doing it. But the reCAPTCHA team was like, go ahead and release it. What can we do? It's our own technology.
If you have hearing or vision impairment, adding more noise or making it worse is going to be even harder on those users. So I don't know what you could do to really fix it, like demand a blood sample, but we're not there yet with the technology.
Well, I'm sure somebody's got a patent for
Drink
that.
verification can.
Actually, we have a story coming up that's very similar to that. Well, but first, Wendell, you are a Skype for Android user.
Yeah.
I know that about you.
Yeah.
It is
Not because
it's
you want to be.
horrible. The messaging does not work. It
does
always
not
says,
work.
this user cannot receive messages.
It's really been bad since Microsoft bought them.
But I see the little green dot.
Well, or to you'll type and then it just freezes up for a solid 20 seconds.
It is just, it's
garbage.
It's the worst. And not only is it bad software, it's now a security risk.
Yeah, you can't unlock an Android phone, no problem. Just take a Skype call. This app allows passcode bypass. So if you got somebody's phone, you can call, and you know that they're using Skype. You can call them with Skype, answer the call in Skype, and then when you send them messages or anything like that, that link to other applications in Skype, they can get to those. The phone's not completely unlocked, but you can still get to text messages and emails and all that kind of stuff.
Anything you can open with a link.
Yeah.
So this is big for law enforcement, obviously, because, hey, we got this phone, we know the number, just Skype it, and we can go in and look at message history and stuff like that. Or curious spouses, Krista. Are you guys going to share passwords?
No. I do know his passwords only because we share a pizza account to order pizzas.
He might not use the same password for everything. I think he's smarter than that.
I don't know.
He's in the know.
I don't know.
But I want to know when you're going to demand a scan of the veins in his hand.
Well, you
yeah.
foreshadowed this with your blood test. What is more intimate than
Taking a blood test
the
together?
makeup of your veins?
Motherboard has the article, hackers have made a fake hand to beat vein authentication. So there's a hand scanner that looks for veins in your hand. But if you can get a scan of someone's veins in their hand, it's not super difficult to print a fake hand that'll fool the authentication system.
Yeah, check it out. So they print the vein this scan is not 3-dimensional. So it's got this flat layer where it's got this stuff under it, and then they just put this faux meat layer on top of it, and they make these little hands,
It looks like weird art projects.
and they work.
Yay, hand scanners.
I got to imagine that is a lot of work, even though it is a 2D vein scan.
You're going to, to capture the vein scan, you're going to need some kind of technology that you can do it like a transparent, like the ATM skimmers, you put a transparent overlay on a hand scanner so that it can see, but you get your own scan. That would be a thing.
You think a government entity with unlimited budget, could they ever do a handshake sniffer
Oh yeah, probably.
That would work.
Yeah, it's like my fake anime. Like you go to shake the guy. Oh, it's like, oh man, that general lost his arm in a battle, and he's got a really high tech prosthetic. Nope, scanning your hand.
Well, up until now,
Your veins.
I mean, of course, we've seen a lot of rootkit problems. What is it? Superfish was the one.
That one was from Lenovo.
Lenovo, yeah. That was
not technically a rootkit, but could lead to rootkits.
and then there was the Sony rootkit on the Celine Dion CD. Remember that one?
They never got punished for that. That's terrible.
But with the advent of UEFI, malicious rootkits had kind of become a thing of the past. They'd done it in, researchers had done it, but no one had ever actually done it in the wild until now.
Yeah. The first ever UEFI rootkit tied to SEDNet, Advanced Persistent Threat, has been detected. So I think this was ESET. ESET was doing the research here. They found a UEFI rootkit in the wild. And this is the same, like Fancy Bear. This is the Fancy Bear group, apt28. Same group is probably responsible for this. Although you can't really tell.
Well, could be the Chinese, could be the Russians, could be pretending as them. So there's a software called LoJack that you can put on a laptop, and it's similar to I think LoJack is the carjacking one too, right?
Yeah.
And it will notify you if your laptop's been stolen. You can track it, and of course, to make it persistent, so the thieves don't just format, it lives in the UEFI. So these guys took that and modified it and made a malicious version of that.
Now, another aspect to this is that they were able to just change a single byte. So like the LoJack domain for like loading the software, because the LoJack stuff doesn't live entirely in the UEFI, but they were able to change a single byte and then squat on that domain so it looks like a typo. You wouldn't even necessarily notice the byte change if you're using like a Unicode character. And so that was what they used to actually deploy their malicious payload, because otherwise you would have gotten the LoJack payload, which is, quote unquote, legit payload.
I wonder where they got that registered, because you think almost every country would agree to take that down, right?
Yeah. Well, can't take it down if you don't know about it. I mean,
But now we do.
But now we do.
And that had been used on really high level targets, so it seems like it probably was well funded.
Yeah, the article had the list of countries. It wasn't U.S. targets or anything like that.
It was like
but
Eastern Europe. I
yeah.
think.
So if you were in that country, you might check your stuff.
Politician in that? You think a lot of Eastern European politicians watch Level 1 news?
Maybe
A lot,
maybe the German
actually.
politicians need to get their stuff checked.
Well, they're Western Europe.
I think all politicians watch this.
Oh yeah,
It's
obviously.
required listening.
They
They might learn a thing or two.
They get together on the weekend. They eat beef jerky. They watch the Level.
They eat beef jerky.
They watch the Patreon version.
The one thing that we can say about Level 1 is that we don't have an agenda other than really just like education and like let's try to distill this down to like how it really is and what's going on, because there's so much spin in some of these articles, like the whole China thing with Apple, and it's like you didn't even mention the CFO thing. So I just makes me really question the credibility.
We were going over the stories. Wendell's like, I have a real problem with this story. Like, he said it very
Yeah.
No, it
seriously.
was the reporter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how could you leave that out? How could you leave that out? I mean, that's like a big deal. It's like it's more political than technological, and the two are going together. But politicians misunderstanding both creates a quagmire of insanity.
Well, I think that phrase represents all of 2018 and going into 2019 more political than technological.
Yeah,
right.
But the technology is being used like a blunt instrument by people that are just.
Or in the case of China, it's being used like a scalpel.
China's getting good at that though, and that's the scary thing. Is like I wish that our people were at least, but no, it's like it's all hand fisted.
Well, see, but that's the thing about it. Like, do you want them to be evil and intelligent, or evil and stupid?
Evil and detectably evil versus evil and undetectably evil. Yeah.
Well, speaking of evil, the 9/11 attacks. It's amazing sometimes to
Here's
think
where we get
about
demonetized.
how long ago that was.
Yeah.
Because it's like that thing where you start to get old. It's just everything just compresses. But yeah, it turns out the Dark Overlord. Now you're saying, who's the Dark Overlord? As if you don't know.
Some sort of hacking group.
He has hacked the a law firm that was working on these 9/11 cases, which are still going through the courts, and he claims to have a lot of juicy information.
Yeah. So these hackers have threatened to dump insurance files related to the 9/11 attacks, and so this is a lot of potentially very politically sensitive information, or maybe not. Maybe it's all old news. Maybe it's all the stuff that we know. I mean, the conspiracy theory nuts will be saying that like this is the whole like Saudi Arabia connection to whatever. I don't know. Motherboard's got the article. They go into that a little bit, but this seems a little bit like extortion. And well, it is exactly
This
extortion.
is textbook extortion.
So there are, there are some people in the media that have reported it like as if it's not extortion, but it totally is.
Well, I think technically this is ransom,
Well, yeah.
not extortion. So, but at the Saudi Arabia thing, I think that's like toward the top of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's like the stuff you can skim off the top. There's a fair likelihood that they had some involvement there. And I do think it's related to those court cases.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are still sort of shaken out.
Some of them have been sealed mysteriously. It's like, why would this be sealed? It doesn't make any sense.
I think that is probably the thing about the 9/11 conspiracies that is the most poorly handled, maybe let's say, is how hard they worked to make it all secret.
Yeah.
Which, of course, just fuels all that speculation.
Speaking of things that people should work harder to make secret, let's talk about your Chromecast configuration.
And the #1 YouTube channel.
Not us.
PewDiePie. So hackers are taking over Chromecast to promote PewDiePie's channel. So it turns out if you've got certain universal plug-and-play routers, you can get to any Chromecast or all Chromecasts behind that universal plug-and-play router. So you can broadcast a message to Chromecasts.
A message like this?
Yes. Attention, your Chromecast Smart TV is exposed to the public internet and is exposing sensitive information about you. To find out more, visit here. Oh, and you should also subscribe to PewDiePie. Greetings from Hacker Giraffe. Well, hello, Hacker Giraffe. How are you?
Now, pro tip, I wouldn't click on that link.
Yeah, I was going to say, that would be even more suspicious.
Although it does seem like these guys are doing a service and, you know, just having some fun with it, but also trying to get some subscribers. I imagine the conversion rate here is pretty low.
It's not the best advertising campaign I've ever seen.
How long is it going to be before, like, you know, you have hackers that are like, you know, hello, blah, blah, blah. Can you please click on this so that I can get some free loot in Fortnite? And then, you know, that's just the whole...
The dabs on them.
Yeah, and that's just like, that's the whole hack. Is like,
Well,
I'm sorry to hack your computer. I'll give you your stuff back. Please just do this thing for me.
But they won't do it like that. They'll make the link like, you know, click here for hot teens in your area.
Yeah.
So,
Hot women in your area.
hot available women, Krista.
Oh, that's right.
And guess what? You're not anymore.
I'm going to get all the planning done this month. And that'd be done.
She already brought in a big stack of bridal magazines to the Twitch stream. It's like, what are we going to do with these?
I wanted you guys to make fun of them, but then I forgot to announce. So I'll have to announce again tonight.
I look forward to playing more RimWorld. I'm getting really into the story of our colony.
Invested.
That is the best thing about RimWorld is
Making up the
they
story.
call that what is it? Something gameplay where it's like the story just creates itself.
I feel like
Chat.
Skyrim does that too, but I don't know what it's called.
The comments will tell us, but yeah, it is amazing that like you actually get invested in these little characters.
We saved scummed 3 times to save Jaguar. He's our best miner.
He's got the wooden foot, so he doesn't move very well. He gets shot.
He just
a lot.
got married. Like we couldn't let him go.
Well, tomorrow we're talking about some business news and probably maybe a little social media and design. I think is what we'll mix in tomorrow.
Woo! See you then.
Bye. Hello, friends. Today's January 9th.
What we got?
I don't remember what stories. We have a lot of Apple stories this time.
This is business, social media, and design.
Oh yeah, there's like 2 design stories.
Yes.
It's a very tiny section.
Oh, I just drank some water.
You inhaled it, really.
CES is happening. We don't have any CES news.
No.
That'll be next week.
We do have a ton of Apple news this week, though. And it's not a good time for Apple.
Apple just lost to Facebook. The market value decline since peak exceeds the value of nearly any U.S. company. So the Apple has lost $452 billion off their market capitalization since October 3rd. Apple's overvalued. Who could have guessed? Certainly not Level 1.
Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Berkshire Hathaway are the only companies that are bigger than Apple. And Apple used to be higher up in that list.
Not anymore.
Now they've fallen off.
Falling hard.
And so, you know, when you ask yourself,
How did this happen?
What's happened to Apple? How did they lose all this? And it's funny because the public, we talk about this a lot. Publicly, Apple didn't say this, but when they talk to their investors, that's when companies get honest.
Tim Cook, 2 investors from Motherboard. People bought fewer new iPhones because they repaired their old ones. Womp womp.
Not untrue. I would say that their pricing is all wrong. Having just got the iPad Pro, like, I was thinking about just getting the old one, but they didn't even reduce the prices on the old one when they released the new one. So it's like, what are you doing? Like,
but I think
of course I'm not going to buy.
It factors into it the same way, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I could spend just a little bit of money and fix this thing and keep it limping along to avoid $1,000 cost.
Yeah.
Well, Apple also
Because they don't have like any medium tier sort of electronics.
They had their $30 battery repair program too, which, Tim Cook was not really super specific. He just said that affects the bottom line. He also alluded to the political situation with the whole Huawei CFO thing in Canada. Like, he alluded to that, but I don't think he said that in those terms. But the Apple battery program gave Apple some cold hard numbers on stuff. And it was not good for Apple in terms of like selling new devices. A lot of people were like, oh yeah, my battery is crap. I can get a new battery. That was penance for the whole, we're going to slow down old iPhones thing.
A battery program which, by the way, ended January 1st.
Yeah. So you can't get that anymore.
That was purely a test. They don't like what it showed them.
They've also asked customs to step up enforcement of, seizing counterfeit Apple batteries. So you can't have a battery that's for Apple. You can, they want customs to seize batteries that are for Apple, not just Apple batteries. You see the difference there?
But it wasn't all bad news for Apple. They did have one really good week.
Yeah, the Apple App Store breaks records. Customers spent $1.22 billion in 1 week. So from Christmas Eve to the day after New Year's, $1.22 billion. I think the banner day was New Year's Day. Everybody was off work, bored. I'll spend some money on iTunes.
And they just got some devices for Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not something. I mean, that's probably like the high mark for the year, don't you think?
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so as well.
Still, it shows you that even though it sounds really bad, and yeah, they're losing a lot of market cap, they're still insanely profitable.
Yeah. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, people are repairing their iPhones. Whatever, we will dry our tears with $100 bills.
And also, maybe part of the problem that you could blame Apple's failure on is they've stopped innovating. They're just they're iterating at this point. And even when they have a really good new idea, they can't always follow through.
AirPower. Remember AirPower? Apple was like, we're going to wirelessly do all this stuff. AirPower officially misses the 2018 deadline. Apple is silent on its status. So you can wirelessly charge an iPhone 8 or newer, I think. But Apple had this idea for like an even better wireless charging system, and it hasn't come to fruition.
Well, Apple might have had a bad 2018, but you know who had a really good 2018? The world's richest man, Jeff Bezos.
Overlord Jeff Bezos.
And his idea to put spying devices into people's homes, I got to admit, I didn't think that would catch on. Boy, was I wrong.
Amazon says they've sold 100 million Alexa devices. So what's next? Go to channel Dr. Evil. 100 million Alexas.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
I talked my mom out of getting one. I'm so proud of myself because she was like, maybe that is a spy device. And I was like, it kind of is, Mom.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Alexa, play back all the recordings you have of me.
They also talk about in that article how Amazon is being very hands-off on how third parties use Alexas. Of course, we saw the Alexa clock. I've seen when I was looking at houses, several newly built homes had Alexa just in the walls in every room.
Oh. She's in the walls listening to you sleep.
And some, now, Jeff Bezos, world's richest man, powerful, evil, unstoppable, but there is one thorn in his paw.
That is the workforce?
Well, it's the unions.
The unions,
Yeah.
okay. So the headline here is "We are not robots. Amazon warehouse employees push to unionize." This one was this one in Spain?
No, this is the Minnesota one.
Oh, this is the Minnesota one. Okay. So yeah, in Minnesota, they were like, "We need to unionize." But when you talk to the Amazon people, were like, this was overstated. This is, we don't really need to unionize. There's a few people that want to unionize, but most people don't. It's basically fine. And these people are saying, we can't even go to the bathroom. And like, no matter how good we do, they set the bar a little higher for the following month. So we have to work at least that hard the following month, but a little bit harder even beyond that. Even when we're like, kicking ass and taking names, they want more. And so it's like, we're not robots. You can't do that.
Also, not big fans, the fulfillment centers of heat and air conditioning.
It's not enough.
Look at this. It's like it was your big moment. The reporters are here to take a picture. This person's sign's upside down.
Oh. Doesn't bode well for your packages, does it?
Well, as you alluded, it was not just Minnesota that lashed out over the holidays at Amazon. Spain also took a stab.
Spain had a holiday called the Three Kings. So Amazon workers strike in Spain ahead of the Three Kings gift giving. So apparently the three wise men came from Spain, apparently. And so they give gifts on this anniversary of that, which is a little after Christmas.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know
anything about this
I don't think they all came from Spain because they were kings.
Yeah.
They had to come from different locations, right?
Well, we're not going to get into that. I mean, it's fine.
Described as wise, man.
I don't know the lore.
But they went on strike. And so, again, Amazon sort of downplayed what was happening here. But the media coverage from that area, it seemed like it was a very large group. At one point, they had a bonfire and just, and Amazon was like, no, that facility was operating as normal. Everything's good.
Yeah, but this, every time, especially in Europe, one of these big strikes happen, Amazon always says the same thing, which is it's not a big deal. And it doesn't seem like the packages stop being delivered. So maybe they're right.
Maybe how long before you think Jeff Bezos takes the corporate jet, flies out there, and is like, look, if you guys don't straighten up, meet Rosie the robot. She's just going to replace all of you.
And murder you.
Not just replace, but wear your face around the warehouse.
It's like, you ever see the movie or read the book, The Stepford Wives? It's going to be like that, except it's going to be you guys with these packages.
I saw the Stepford Wives that came out like in the early 2000s. I think Nicole Kidman was in it. It was not good.
Yeah, it was.
Was that a remake?
Was
it was a remake.
I saw the one from like the 60s.
Yeah, this one is like a remake from the early 2000s.
I only knew the 2000s one. Well, this is an interesting story from Microsoft, and I can't decide how I feel about it because it seems like maybe this is good for consumers, but it's Microsoft. How could it be?
We correctly guessed what it was too. I'll point that out. It's like Level 1 was right again. ZDNet. It's like Microsoft is privately testing Bali, a way to give users control of the data collected about them. Microsoft Research is going to provide users with access to their own personal data bank. And so basically the idea here is that as companies and healthcare providers and all these other people build a database about you, they would store that data in Bali, and then you could control it from then on out. But it requires people to voluntarily cooperate with it. So I think that's going to limit its success.
I don't think companies want to give people that power because.
Well, can you imagine Facebook? It's like here's your like not your Facebook data, but like the information derived from that. It's like here's your data, and this is what we know about you, and this is what we conclude based on that data. People would be horrified.
And that's only valuable in aggregate. Like your personal information is not going to be worth enough for you to bother with this.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, unless that's the only place they can get it. I don't know. It might be like you go into a Bitcoin mining. What do they call those things where you mine together?
A pool?
A pool. And you do like, okay, listen, everybody who works here at the Amazon Fulfillment Center, we're all going to sell our data together, and then we'll go to Bermuda for a week, in April.
That's when you learn that like the intelligence service runs Bali, and like some guys in suits show up and they're like, look, if you see a package to this address, we want you to do this. We want you to insert this into the package. It's like, oh, okay.
Ryan, were you trying to transition into the one story? I don't think, never mind. It's not, it's like way farther ahead. Never mind.
No, I'm just saying like your individual data is not going to be valuable on an individual level.
Yeah.
It's going to be a couple of bucks, and no one's going to care. Well, we've talked about, one of the interesting things, you ever go back and look at those old like black and white movies from the 50s and 60s where it was like the vision of the future, or they had that Disney ride, The World of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And the one thing that nobody got right was user interface.
Yeah.
They had these amazing robots, but they were still those like giant analog push buttons.
Or the original Star Trek, where it's like, what is this console with all this stuff? This doesn't
Nothing's
even make
labeled.
sense.
Yeah.
Of course, Next Generation did kind of get the touch screen,
They got it right, yeah.
but nobody else ever got the touch screen. Like nobody knew that we were going to be touching a piece of glass. So it's hard to think of what comes next, but I could totally see this being it.
Google wins U.S. approval for a new radar-based motion sensor. Now, we did see a little bit of this in Star Trek, where they had a hologram on the table and they would spin it around by just gesturing in air. This is very similar to the Magic Leap, which used infrared, except this uses radar, and so they can package this in like a cell phone, and you can do sort of the Magic Leap style gestures, but even more higher resolution.
You could do like little tiny,
Yeah,
turn a dial or
yeah.
And
swipe through something.
The cool thing they talk about that I don't think I've ever thought about before is just using your own skin as the haptic feedback. So a slider, if you're trying to do a slider like this, it would be hard to be accurate. But if you're sliding against your own skin, the radar can pick that up and you can be very precise. So
How long before somebody makes a plugin for Chrome that the downvote gesture for YouTube videos is playing the world's tiniest violin?
Oh, see, I would think you'd want like
how long till
something
somebody
aggressive,
creates an interface where there's a slider that you desire to turn up, but some horrible person makes you touch them. In order.
No.
How much of a tip would you like?
In order to mute this ad, show it to the person next to you. I don't.
Can you show it to a cat? That's the way you get around it. An animal.
Wildcats would love that, wouldn't they? That'll make iPad cat apps so much more engaging for the cats. Well, we've talked about Amazon, we've talked about Apple, so of course we have to talk about Google. And
It's the end of the year. What happened with the taxes?
what do you do if you're Google at the end of the year? You stuff all of your cash into bags and you fly to Bermuda.
Google shifted $23 billion to a tax haven in Bermuda in 2017, according to this filing. Now, remember Ireland. Apple's not doing so well with Ireland, so Google's like, So it's Bermuda, the new hotness in tax.
Well, Bermuda was always the Irish double Dutch sandwich destination.
Yeah. I think recording. I know Bjork. I think she does Bermuda. She'll record albums there for tax purposes.
But
I
I
don't
think
know how that works. But
Ireland is out of the picture now, right? I don't think they're allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah. Well,
But-
they're fighting it, but yeah.
But the Dutch are still in the game. So, to the tune of $23 billion.
Depending on how things go for Ireland, it might not go well for the Dutch. I don't know.
Well, you listen, make hay while the sun shines, I guess. $23 billion is a pretty good. You probably get a pretty good commission for that. Well, the other thing that Alphabet has done that we've actually talked about before are their loon balloons. Do you think they use 99 of them?
99 loon balloons. That's our title for this week.
But
If we remember.
they
Yeah, we'll
perfected this
forget.
technology. We talked about that before, where they're able to sort of ride the winds, and they're actually going to use it in a commercial environment.
Kenya has a huge percentage of their population has cell phones, and they use that for all their communications, hospitals, everything. So this floating equipment, prevents the need for extensive infrastructure on the ground. And they talked about how they've gotten so good with positioning these balloons as part of Project Loon that they can launch them from like New Zealand or Australia and pilot them into place and keep them there.
I think they launch them they are not. It's more expensive to fly them to Kenya, so they're launching them from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And just
crazy.
flying them over there. Which is, you're riding the wind, right? So it's free energy, I guess.
No, well, they had like a solar panel on there too, so they're solar powered balloons. That they.
Well, I think
I wonder
that.
how you collect them, or it's like, oh, this one's failing. Let's get it back.
Well, you
they
just
probably don't care about that. First
you
let it die.
deflate
The bladder.
the bladder so it sinks, right? Then you go and get it, and then remember I can't remember what the product was. It was some kind of balloon they were using for research, and those Africans would follow them and steal the
Steal
SIM
the SIM
cards.
Nice.
Well, we talked about the veins in your hand being a biometric, and now we've got all this radar-based interface. So what's next? Lasers.
Sony promises better face identification through depth sensing lasers. So the production is set to ramp in late summer 2019, just in time for a deluge of new Android and Apple devices. So they want to take face recognition in devices to the next level and, have an even more accurate 3D map of your face that's used for unlocking. Has nobody seen the 3D printed head unlock? Because that's a thing.
Well, we were talking about it before, and Ryan was like, it's kind of like how Bat uses echolocation. I like to imagine in that world where, like, you go to unlock your phone and your phone just screeches at you. And then it gets like a 3D.
I don't know why, but it's like, log into Facebook, and I'm picturing a picture of Mark Zuckerberg, and he opens his mouth, and then it does like the bat echolocation, and it's like, yep, it's you.
Oh, yeah, but it has to be like a really high pitched, like a
But it's interesting that you say that, because one of the limitations with current facial recognition is they need a certain light level to see you. But this doesn't require that.
Yeah. Well, Windows Hello uses an infrared illuminator to combat that problem.
So it's all lasers from now on, or at least if Sony has their way. I was surprised by this. Krista wasn't, which I don't know. I guess she's more in touch with the UK market than I am. But if you told me this, I'd be like, really?
Video games now account for more than half of the UK entertainment market.
Well, I don't know why I wasn't surprised. Maybe it's because there's a lot of the gaming YouTubers I watch are from the UK. Maybe that's why.
Well, I guess, but movies and music together. So movies and music together do not add up to the gaming revenue in the UK.
I'm not surprised by that.
And they talk about how Spotify and Netflix have taken over, like just completely taken over those streaming services or movie and music services in general.
You know the other crazy thing about this? It only counts first sale. Yeah. It doesn't, like Fortnite isn't even factored into this.
Yeah, or DLC or any after the fact purchases.
Oh yeah.
So
gotta have that skin.
So
that loot box.
This is a worst case scenario. So it was probably already true that online entertainment expenses were already far exceeding whatever a long time ago. Now there's no matter how you count it.
And you know who's really stinging from that? The music industry, because they were solidly in control, and now they're nothing.
They're feeling that salt.
And they've never been less than they are right now.
Yeah, album sales are dying as fast as streaming services are rising, according to the Rolling Stone. Music consumption shot up in 2018, no thanks to album or song sales.
Nobody. So when you count individual downloads, I think like 17 people in 2017 had over 1 million. Nobody in 2018.
Wow.
Not even Eminem had a big album. Taylor Swift had a big album. There's all those rappers that I don't even know who they are. Drake was big, right?
I don't know if it's a traditional album or not, but Weird Al did really well.
I don't think Weird Al is...
I don't think he's quite the same level.
He's not on Taylor Swift's level.
No.
I know in your world, he stands alone at the top of the music pyramid.
He's not everywhere else. Everyone in the comments should tell me whether or not I should buy a Spotify account. I've been considering it. It's kind of expensive,
You don't even have Netflix.
Not anymore. And now it's like, well, that money's burning a hole in my pocket.
How much is Spotify?
I think it's like $10 a month. I've been considering it.
Google Music, I think they actually raised theirs. It might be like 10 now as well.
Yeah.
But you also get YouTube Premium with that.
That's true. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I've been considering it because right now I use YouTube playlists, which is like fine, but it'd be nice to have.
Does your car have Bluetooth?
I don't think so.
But it's got the aux cable, right?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Of course, you are a bit of a data hog.
Yeah, I am a little bit. It's a bad habit.
Well, speaking of cars and the operating systems within them, you know what I'm not crazy about is Android Auto.
Yeah.
The UI is very clumsy.
There might be updates for it. Have you tried telling it to update the thing?
No, I've got the latest one. I mean,
it's just bad.
The stuff in the car doesn't matter. It runs off the phone.
Oh, okay.
It just casts it to the screen in the car.
Well, that's a good way to do it.
But it's a clumsy UI, and I guess it's made for maybe a little bit smaller screens. But anyway,
Krista, you should design some new ones.
I'd have to really work on it though. Like you can't just design; you have to spend time with it.
The other thing is, I think it's designed to keep you from fiddling too much, so you don't run into things.
Oh yeah.
So you can only go with existing playlists. You can't just search for music or something like that. Anyway, all this to lead up to the idea that cars need operating systems. They need interfaces, and this is not something that's going to change So who's going to be the operating system in the car? And the news is pretty good.
It's the year of the Linux
The Penguin-powered car.
Yeah, it's a Linux-powered car. It's not just Tesla with Linux under the hood. Audi, Mercedes-Benz, Hyundai, and Toyota, to name a few, all rely on Linux. So the ZDNet article is pretty interesting. It's written for people that don't necessarily know all that much about Linux, yeah. But Linux, it turns out, is a very versatile operating system. It might not, people, might not like using it as a desktop operating system in general, but gosh darn it, making appliances that run on Linux is like the best thing ever.
You can't really make his little wings dab. They're not long enough.
That's the curse of the penguin.
Yeah.
Kind of that. I've been trying to find somewhere that can make us those
So we can put them in the store. We cannot find anyone to
at a
manufacture
reasonable
them.
price, and it's just...
That would be a great children's book. Would be a T-Rex who's sad because they
You can't dab. Well, your mom wanted to get into that, right? You could send that idea to her.
That's too edgy for her. Well, we've talked about
What's dabbing?
We talked about China
Explain that.
and their hatred for Apple, and they do bitterly hate Apple with all of the the political espionage and the.
I think the hatred is
arrests.
very recent. Let's be honest.
Well, they've
been kind of frenemies.
They've never liked them, but now it's gotten serious. Yeah. And Huawei, of course, is at the heart of that. And a marketing company that they hired did something very bad.
The Chinese phone maker Huawei punishes employees for iPhone tweet blunders. So this marketing agency was set to do all this stuff, make some Twitter posts.
So it was a New Year's Eve Twitter post. Very important.
The timing.
Yeah, it's got to be right on the stroke of midnight.
So the marketing folks say something went wrong with their network and they weren't able to tweet using the Huawei devices. They tweeted from an iPhone.
Because of the Great Firewall.
Because
you're not supposed to tweet in China.
Well, they tweeted from an
get through the
iPhone and they didn't realize that in certain Twitter clients you can see what they tweeted from. And so it's like, blah, 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 Huawei, Twitter for iPhone. It's like, oh.
Ooh.
Huawei was very mad.
Yeah. I can imagine, like, the high-ranking people, like they were drinking their champagne and their high-rise
a vein
apartment.
burst
Yeah.
out of their neck.
and they're like, oh, yes, let's check and see if the peasants have made the tweet. And then that just ruined their entire year. But, yeah.
Cut off his pinky.
They did talk, the agency itself, of course, like, Huawei was like, heads must roll, and the agency was like, yes, they will. They cut the salary of the guy who actually physically pushed the button by $700 a month. And they locked his manager is locked into his current pay grade for all of 2019. He can't get a raise.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, they're serious. I mean, not to make that mistake again.
I suspect that company will, as long as they have that contract, which who knows how long that'll be, you will not be using iPhones.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Well, we talked about the music industry, and the music industry is dying at about the same rate as the cable industry. So all the big cable companies, of course, everybody hates them. They have terrible customer service. The commercial television, I just can't watch it.
Yeah.
It's horrendous.
It's so loud.
Nobody wants it. And so they have an interesting plan to combat this.
Bloomberg has the article, Comcast, Dish, and AT&T are raising TV prices to counter cord cutting. Now, when three quote-unquote competing companies all raise their prices at the same time, how is that not investigated as collusion?
It's the sport channels, they say. Those evil sport channels want too much money.
People don't want our service. How do we make sure we make a profit?
Well,
raise the price on the service we don't want.
No, it's this attitude of like, look, I'm entitled to this profit, and we only have half as many subscribers now. So you other half, you're going to pay twice as much because we will not make less money. These are the people that are in charge of our communications infrastructure. Rest assured, they will exploit that control in order to claw back more profits.
As long as they can. Of course, as we've seen with the music industry, that hits a tipping point, and then the fall is almost immediate. Can't wait.
One can only hope.
I'd say another 2 generations has to die before we hit that.
I really don't want to campaign for like government-owned and controlled communications infrastructure, but good Lord, this is a capitalistic nightmare.
Well,
It's not really capitalism though, because like capitalism tells you if you have something people don't want and you're charging too much for it, you lower the price,
the
not raise it.
commercial TV, I think we just let it die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bleeding out.
Well, if it were capitalistic, wouldn't one of the three at least be like, nah, we're going to lower our prices to get people that don't want your price raises? I mean, you would think that at least one of them would do that if it were capitalistic.
Yeah, but they also have the media companies attached to them.
Yeah.
So they're bleeding out, like their arms bleeding out, but they're getting a transfusion on another limb. And so
This control of our communication infrastructure is really something that keeps me awake at night.
now, Krista, one thing I know about you is that when it comes to responsible sleep habits and punctuality, you are at the
struggle.
top of your game.
It's a struggle for me to sleep ever. And when I do go to sleep, I struggle to stay asleep.
ZDNet has the headline.
Tired tech workers lose 27 hours of sleep per month. I don't think mine's quite that high, but
I think we could probably confirm that.
yeah. I don't know if mine's that high.
Yours is maybe that high just from...
Overwatch.
No. I go to bed at reasonable hours. I just wake up a lot. Like I don't sleep the way I should. I don't know why that is. I probably have like sleep apnea or something, but undiagnosed.
So, yeah, they talk about how it's very common in a lot of industries that people just, they don't sleep.
Well, healthcare, like it mentions healthcare in like
Yeah.
the sub headline. That makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense.
You wouldn't think tech, but I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to be
No.
a common thing in our office.
But they do. The tech does have weird hour demands sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, something goes down at midnight.
No one cares.
well, it's generally you'll get a big gaming crisis story about once a month, maybe more than that. Well, when Bethesda releases a game.
Yeah. Fallout was like every week.
This is more of an indie darling, and it's rarer that you get this kind of drama with an indie darling.
Star Control Origins has been removed from Steam and Good Old Games following a DMCA claim. So the legal battle between Stardock, the people that Stardock acquired some IP rights from Atari, and the original Stardock series creators, Fred Ford and Paul Ritchie, has escalated. So I don't know what to make of this.
Well, it seems like they bought the rights to the name, but not necessarily to the individual assets, like the ship designs.
I think their
Yeah.
argument is going to be that they bought whatever rights Atari had, and Atari had more rights than I think their theory is that Atari had more rights than just that. But I do think that it is clear that Atari did not have the full rights to Star Control 1 and 2.
Do you think that they told them when they made the contract, or they're just like, well, if they're not going to ask, we're not going to tell
Well,
them?
that was one of the things about it is the judge ruled they had already had these discussions, so they knew very well that these guys were contesting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the judge was saying, well, because they were contesting it and you didn't do something about it then.
Yeah, that's kind of on you.
Yeah.
If you enter a bad contract like that.
And that kind of makes sense because if you were buying stuff from Atari and Atari was like, yeah, you can just buy all this stuff from our catalog, it's great, and basically
Terms
everything
and conditions apply.
Yeah, basically everything follows these rights, and then you start doing your homework, and it's like, well, the rights for this game are different than the rights for this game. You would go back to Atari and say, hey, what's up? What's going on? But by then the deal was long since done. So I'd say that, it looks like these two people outside of Stardock have a pretty good case.
We'll see. Both sides are saying that they're in the right. So the DMCA did go through. They took the game down, but they have not conceded that they're saying they're going to put it back up. So I don't know.
On their own website.
Well, Tesla.
The subsidies have ended. Not really. They're like
They're declining.
A
Yeah.
tier has fallen off as of January 1st. I think it's something like $2,500.
$37.50.
Wow, is it that much?
I think it was.
No, I think that's what's left.
$38.50 is what's left. Oh, okay.
You lost like $2,000.
Oh, okay.
So what are they going to do about it? Well, maybe depending on where you stand, the right thing.
Tesla is going to cut prices to combat the tax credit phase out. Now, this is really interesting. Now, this article, I don't think mentions it, but in the run-up to December 31st, Tesla dealers were open until midnight to try to get some stragglers in to, buy and take delivery of their cars. And I don't think as many people took Tesla up on that as they would have liked.
No.
We'll find out in the quarterly earnings report.
No, I think they've already announced that the sales were less than expected. And now, of course,
Wall Street's upset.
Add $2,500 to that, so they had to do something. But yeah, the investors are looking at this and they're saying, "Oh, wait a minute,
Now
you got to make money. How are you? No, profit. We need profit."
Now, if Tesla is also going to ramp up for like a new model, the Model Y or whatever,
The $3,500 one.
yeah. So aren't they just going to immediately go back like hard into the red?
Yeah, because I think they lose a little bit with every one of those, right?
Yeah.
And plus, I don't know if they're going to cut those to 2,000. But at the end of 2019, that's the end of all the subsidies.
Yeah.
So you got a year.
We got until July, and it goes down again in July.
And of course, they also mentioned this will be the year when other car makers will bring electrics onto the market.
Yeah. Well, not so much Faraday Futures.
Wow. I don't think they were ever really a threat.
That was a story last.
I think
week.
Mercedes and is Toyota doing one?
No, the preliminary reports on the Mercedes were not impressive.
But several other companies do have electrics that are rolling out. So, well, switching over to social media, I don't know what CNN was thinking because they seem to use gender as something other than a social construct.
No, I would say this is definitely a social construct. Link between social media and depression stronger in teen girls than boys, study says. This is not surprising
Well,
to
who
me.
says what's a boy or a girl? How do you measure this?
It's a little early to be imposing gender roles on it, don't you think?
I think girls are socialized typically to be a little more pleasing, like people pleasing, and to value people's opinions a little bit more. And girls tend to share a little bit more on social media, so you're comparing yourself more.
They tend to be hyper competitive with one another.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of what they came to as a conclusion, is that it's not just the gender makes you choose different kinds of social media, and teen girls tend to focus on pictures
Yeah.
of
Instagram.
themselves and others.
And she's got prettier clothes, or her makeup's prettier, or she had her hair done nicely.
Yeah, or she has things that I can't afford.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one.
Whereas boys' social media use was not so much about pictures.
I would think, I don't really know, like none of my younger boy cousins are really into social media, but I could see like maybe having like a gaming group or something, and it's all about your like performance, your KD ratio.
Oh my God. You want to have a few more stereotypes here, Kristen?
I'm just throwing it out here.
That's probably going to get us demonetized.
As a teen boy, what were you concerned about socially?
Or currently. There might be a few teen boys in the audience.
Engagement challenge.
I was asking you guys. You guys
I
were
don't-
teen boys at one time.
Well,
I
we
was-
weren't.
I was damaged goods.
We weren't that
Listen.
demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
I mean,
Didn't care about social norms at all.
I was,
Didn't know.
Social ladder.
I was,
Had no idea it was a thing.
I was super excited about the Voodoo 2. Team Fortress was big.
Oh
in
yeah,
my
Team
world.
Fortress. I remember.
I was early, so like I was alone. There was nobody else. Its technology had not caught on, and so most people were just like, "What's a computer?"
And Magic the Gathering for a short, horrible window.
Oh, yeah, I had that bug too. That was bad.
I never played it, but lots of guys in my friend group played it, and I was like, I don't understand.
At one point, I was on the academic team solely to just play Magic on Saturdays.
We were on ICQ, though.
Oh yeah,
ICQ was a little before my time. Some other guys in the office talk about ICQ fondly, though.
I was using Talk, and it was like, man, just get a Talk daemon for Windows. It's fine.
And the bulletin boards, which is like the furthest thing from Facebook that can possibly exist.
Yeah.
Well, how about remember the big, was it GoFundMe that the homeless guy and the couple they used?
Oh, they
Yes.
defrauded I think it
Yep.
was GoFundMe.
So that turned out they gave all that money back. GoFundMe refunded all that money because it was such a scam. Well, it turns out that's not the only scams that people are very much aware of on GoFundMe.
Yeah, GoFundMe is still enabling garbage cancer treatment scams. So the story here is not that people in America need to get their cancer treatment on GoFundMe. It is that they're going to get their cancer treatment through homeopathic means because they're scared of the expense of
the doctor.
the
so
real treatment, or
Yeah.
someone has convinced them that homeopathic medicine works.
Krista, rate this stock photo.
It's fine. It gets the point across.
That looks like real medicine as opposed to homeopathic
Yeah.
medicine.
But would you use corks? Like
Oh,
To
yeah.
close that up, yeah.
Yeah, I guess not.
Some of the mushrooming stuff I've been into, they're like, oh, this has been proven to treat cancer. I'm like, no, it's been proven to boost your immunity, so it's good when taken with Western medicine, and your immune system's destroyed to take it, drink a tea with your chemotherapy. But
I bet you're
it's like
popular
people
in
don't
those
understand
groups.
that nuance.
I bet they love hearing that, don't they?
Yeah, people really love hearing that.
Well,
Why can't they work together? Why is that?
I think a lot of the critique of some of these things is, it's a sob story.
Yeah,
But it really is someone with cancer, but they're not necessarily telling you that they're not using that money for recognized cancer
Medicine,
treatments.
yeah.
They're using the stuff that's basically water, and you might not be as quick to donate to that if you knew that.
Mm.
Well,
Speaking of things, you might not be so quick to something money.
yeah, I cannot place I can't quantify my idea of what my number would be for my Facebook account because it's zero.
How much would they have to pay to use Facebook? Like, I guess that
Or
would
to
be a
give it
negative
up.
number. Yeah.
Oh, to
Well,
give
you'd
it
have to
up.
pay me to.
Yeah, that's what I'm
okay,
saying.
that's that. Yeah, I would like once a week. I'd log in for $1,000.
Ars Technica has the economists calculate the true value of Facebook's to its user in a new study. True value of Facebook to its users in a new study. Some users required more than $1,000 a year to deactivate their account.
So these guys did auctions, and there were two groups. One group did short amounts of time, like a day or a week. The other group did a year or more, I think. So they would have this auction. I think it was students they were always working with. And I was like, hey, we will pay you to stop using Facebook for a year. And it was like a reverse auction where the lowest value got the money. And then you actually had to delete your Facebook in front of them, and then they would pay you. So it gave them a real, it's like, you can imagine a starving college student, $1,000. So yeah, most of the time somebody would undercut and be like, listen, I'll do it for 500. That easy, no problem. But it still showed you that there wasn't somebody who went so far under 500 that the average wasn't $1,000.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
There were like the daily auctions was like $3, $4, $5 for the daily auctions, but
Weeks got into like 15.
yeah,
But here's the thing. Here's why I don't think this means anything. Facebook, the value of Facebook is that other people are there.
Yeah.
If everybody got this offer, then everybody would leave Facebook and get the money and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't matter.
yeah.
You'd have to get in there. This would be like invest early, or Facebook value is your account value is going to be nothing.
Well, I think we're onto something with that because we talked about that a little bit with Twitter, and it's like how complicated is it to set up a 144 character thing? And a lot of people are annoyed with Twitter, and so there's a lot of really interesting open source projects out there that
There's no one on them.
that are looking to. Well, I mean, that's true, but that might change. Facebook is a little more complicated than Twitter, but not as complicated as say YouTube with like the video hosting and stuff. So it's probably somewhere in the middle.
But also, I think people would, in many cases, prefer a Facebook that didn't have all the crap.
Yeah.
So you could get away with cutting a lot of that fat.
Like the video that follows you down when you scroll. I hate that.
Oh, every news website does that, and that's
Or
just
the
Yeah.
ad, or it's just why? Who thought
Also,
that was a good idea? Who
it's
thought
terrible.
that's effective?
You ever,
It's annoying.
You ever try to look at a Facebook page when you're not logged into Facebook?
Oh yeah, and it's just like
Because like the gun range that I go to, they do all their stuff on Facebook. So I have to
Yeah.
check and see if they're going to be closed for weather or whatever. And then when you scroll down, it pops up.
It says, "Hey, you're not
when
logged
it's
in."
like, oh, you want to log in, and then you click no, and then it just like covers the bottom third of the screen until you scroll down a little bit more, and then it pops back up there. And it's like, oh, you're not logged in. Did we mention that?
At least theirs is open. Like I'm in a few groups where like if you're not logged in, you can't see anything.
somewhere
You
there's
shut it down.
there's a web developer that's just weeping quietly as they implement that at management's orders.
Yeah, there's probably some designer who's like, I really didn't want to do this, but they told me I had to. And
Well, let's switch over to the design portion of the day. And when we talked about color changing clothing, I wasn't very excited.
Yeah, it's not that exciting. There's not really a lot of use
This-
cases for that.
This is a little bit more exciting. This, I think, will have a lot more uses, and some of them that we're certainly not thinking about yet.
The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has granted Apple, of all people, a new patent for fabric that could be applied to clothing, furniture, etc.
And it would change textures and things like that. So like you could interact with it in some way, and it would change, and you'd be able to tell what you were holding or
Yeah.
what was the scenario they talked about?
remote control pillow?
Yes, that's it. I just couldn't remember what it was. Was it a pillow or a
So-
shirt or?
It would just be a pillow until you squeezed it at a certain point, and then it would transform the face of the pillow into a remote that you could visually see the buttons, but also you could feel them being different.
So if it's in the dark, you wouldn't have to like squint at it.
Which is kind of cool. They also talked about clothing that could maybe react to rain, for
Yeah.
example, and change its texture to be more rainproof. So it could be cool, but I imagine, like the color changing stuff, batteries are always going to be the problem here.
Yeah. So that could be an amazing like performance fabric for hiking if you could do something that reacts to rain, but the weight there would probably be a big prohibitive.
And finally, the biggest news of the year.
This, I'm disappointed in this story because the stock photo
It's not. It's
It's-
kind of
it's
misleading.
not actually the thing.
Google Chrome Dark Mode confirmed for Windows 10 to channel your inner Darth Vader. So
So what a terrible.
Yeah.
Who was that? Paul Lilly? Come on.
it's not even the recent Chrome that has the square tabs. It's just the old school. Like, this is just shopped. This is
And-
Yeah, it's just
no,
it's,
but
it's
it's not
dark
even.
UI
It's the
on YouTube.
YouTube.
This is
Yeah.
the YouTube dark mode, but this part of the browser
The actual
Yeah.
URL bar and stuff.
Well, now, it's funny though because on Windows 10 has a dark mode, and so you can get like the controls and stuff, but like some of the other stuff, because Chrome like it's custom, so like Chrome stuff is still light colored. So, but with Windows 10, you can totally do the Windows 10 dark mode, and it's fine.
But Google Chrome, that's something everyone's been complaining about forever. Is getting a dark mode in Chrome. That'll be nice.
It seems so easy because
It's so easy.
They mentioned here the incognito one is darker.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
gray.
it is. Yeah.
They could have done this to beat Apple. It's all Apple because Mojave added the dark mode, so now everybody's like, "Oh, Apple has dark mode. We must have dark mode too."
YouTube's had dark mode forever.
No, not
But
as
not
long
that
as
long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? I feel like I've had it
I remember-
equipped forever.
you get to have a browser plugin.
Yeah,
to do it
I
for
used
you.
to use the Firefox plugin, which
No, I have it like it's actually like a toggle in the menu bar. Like they've
no,
had
but
that
that's
for a long
recent.
time.
I used to have extensive Grease Monkey scripts for retooling the web to be exactly the way that I wanted, but they don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been like at least a year I think on YouTube that you
well,
could do
that's,
dark mode.
that's a relatively short amount of time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, in tech that's not.
All right, what we got coming up Friday?
Robots.
Nonsense.
Yeah,
and
nonsense.
I feel like maybe one other thing, maybe not.
I don't remember. I
We
feel like we were kind of out of order this week. Like,
Well, it was a weird breakup of stories, but we got
Yeah.
a lot of robot news tomorrow.
And a lot of nonsense.
That's on Friday, not tomorrow. I'm sorry.
whatever.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to do a correction. I will do the correction at the beginning of Friday's news.
Ooh, something to look forward to. Today is January 11th, so that's 1/1/2019.
11111.
Well, you leave
no.
out the 20, you get another one.
Yeah. Not quite as exciting as 1/11/2011, but I mean, we're getting there.
It's an all odd day.
It is. Now, on to stories. It's kind of a weak intro, but let's just move past it.
Well,
Robots.
yeah.
So many robots.
We'll start with robots, and the robot revolution has angered many. Neo-Luddites, I guess we could call them. And they're taking out their anger on the poor little Waymo cars.
God help us if they form a political party. Humans harass and attack self-driving Waymo cars.
This is so bizarre.
This is in Arizona. Come on, people. This is how we get Skynet. You know, one of these is going to get struck by lightning, and then it's going to have its tires knifed, and all of a
Ooh,
sudden
I
we've
would
got
watch that
Skynet.
movie. That'd be interesting.
And there's going to be, like, the guy who puts new tires on it is going to be the one that they spare.
Yeah.
And he has to try to, like, ride around in it and convince it to stop the killing. But the government's going to blame him.
Yeah.
So it's him
Oh, man.
and the car against the world.
See, that.
then-
That's a
Oh,
Knight
you got
Rider
more?
reboot for the 21st century.
Well, I don't want to spoil it all, but by the end, the car destroys itself, saving him because he redeems it.
There was a Jeep that ran a Waymo car off the road 7 times.
So
What is wrong with people in Arizona?
I imagine they got really frustrated because they ran it off the road and they were like, "Yeah, suck on that Waymo." But it's just a robot
just
doesn't care.
readapted, yeah.
It's like, okay, I'll get back on the road now. And it's like, no.
I would love to see like a sped up version of that to Yakety Sax, where like just keeps pushing it off the road.
You mentioned slash tires, thrown rocks, and
Yeah.
just kicking and beating in general. People do not like these robot cars.
So what you're saying is that it really is going to be like Leslie Nielsen's movie where they have the automatic pilot. Like these self-driving cars are going to have like an inflatable driver that inflate into the driver's seat so people don't know they're driverless.
Well, they did. So
I think people would be able to tell.
it turns out the LiDAR is what gives them away because they got the big box mount on the top. But I'm not sure that having a driver spares them because Waymo has instituted a hands-free emergency call system. So if you're a safety driver and you feel threatened, hands-free, I don't know exactly how it works, maybe a pedal or something, you can get in touch with Waymo immediately and let them know that it's going down.
It's going to be like Star Trek. It's going to be like computer execute program Waymo Omega 3, and then it's like
I like to imagine they're just singing a jingle. To
It's gonna be-
contact Waymo.
It's execute code password 123. Well, speaking of passwords, some people, and the worst people, will share passwords on streaming services.
I don't know who would do such a thing. It would definitely never be me.
People who are not in the same household, even if they're going to be, doesn't make it okay.
Variety says that video services are may soon use artificial intelligence to crack down on password sharing.
This sucks for people who do this.
So, of
Not
course,
that anyone here does, but if they did, it would suck.
they already know about the IP address, of course. But it's going to be more than that. So the artificial intelligence part is they're actually going to look at what you're watching and the times that you're watching and try to build a pattern and say, wait a minute, I think this is more than one person.
It's going to screw over some people I know because one account that I know of watches like survivalist shows and cooking shows, but then someone that shares the account watches like Korean soap operas. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
There's an
May
impetus
flag that system.
for this kind of thing. I mean, even sharing the account, whatever, but building the profile on the individual will be more important from a monetization standpoint because the more complete their psychological profile on you, the more they can not waste time advertising things like Star Trek Discovery to you and instead advertise other things you actually care about.
Oh, you pretend, but you,
You
watch
watch
Star
it.
Trek Discovery.
You watch it just for the hate.
Only the algorithm knows for sure.
So yeah, this is now one thing about this is they're saying they're not necessarily going to turn you off. Of course, this is a separate company. It'll be up to like Netflix, for example, not this company. But what they recommend is they just harass you a little bit and be like, hey, did you know that you can buy a plan that lets more than one person watch? We have that.
Pass.
It's like it's threatening. Yeah, but then
Like all those ad blocker windows that pop up. It's like, you don't really want to do this, right? Dismiss.
Our next story is going to kick America's obesity problem into high gear.
Well, these are healthy snacks.
these are healthy,
I mean,
like baked Lays.
But the company that it's from, really, it might as well be. It's like healthy snacks from this thing. It might be like net neutrality laws from a Jeep pie.
but imagine back to your college days, and you're in the middle of one of those long, a Tuesday, Thursday class. You got that extra 15, 20 minutes, and you're just dying for a bag of baked Lays. What could you do? In our day, you couldn't do anything, but now is the future.
PepsiCo's Hello Goodness Snack Bot is a cure-all for college campus munchies. Now, make no mistake, Pepsi has already thought this through. They were like, we're going to load this thing down with sugary snacks and all kinds of stuff, and then wait, it's like, oh, wait, people are going to freak out about that. They're going to say things like America's obesity epidemic is about to get into high gear. So they've got healthy snacks like fruits and nuts and stuff in these.
No, it's
not
like
quite
it's
fruits
like
and
sun
nuts.
chips and
It's still chips.
baked Lays and
Now,
soda water and
let's do a level 1 prediction. And I don't know how easy this will be to follow up on. How long before Doritos and Mountain Dew are in these things?
Condoms. College campus.
That might actually be a
Doritos,
good
Mountain
thing.
Dew, and condoms. Because those are often bought in contests or concert, aren't they? Yeah, that's.
I think
It's like, dear Pepsi bot, I'm in a fix. I need, I need a box of condoms outside, like, now.
but it takes forever because it's so small. Like,
it's an
put the
awkward
picture back
15
up.
minutes. It's just, any minute now.
And so I was looking at that little robot, and like I went to school in the frigid north, and like in the winter, there's no way that thing would be getting over the
this
snow.
was
No
San
way.
Francisco.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the
The ideal conditions for
perfect
such a
place
robot.
for it.
Yeah,
Maybe they'll have a little off-road version.
it has like all terrain tires. Has to climb
They
over
did
the
mention
snow,
it's
the ice.
it's all-wheel drive.
It's like 24 miles of range in that thing, too.
And a college campus, how many square miles there, you think?
Typically not a lot.
So, yeah, you can probably make a couple deliveries. And they have more than one, so they'll just recharge. And I
What a
think
time to be alive.
they probably will get robbed, though.
Yeah. Well,
Although, would you want to risk a robbery for some chips?
yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, they would for a party.
Well, they could have cameras and stuff on them, too. So
They definitely do.
They track you down.
Well, you could get it from behind.
Just
Speaking-
smash it, tip it over.
Speaking of cameras, one of the big problems that we have, well, I say Africa has, is poaching.
Well, in here too, but
And it's tough to keep an eye on that because there's so much area. So what do? Well, there's a new approach that is amazing to me because of the battery life.
An AI-equipped camera system will help spot wildlife poachers before they can kill. Scroll down so they can see the...
Look at that thing.
it's so small.
tiny. It's so
It's-
tiny.
It's like a slap bracelet.
They say a year and a half. Maybe there's like a big ass battery that goes between these two
Oh, probably.
connectors.
Yeah.
But
They can hide them in the trees and stuff, and
So-
it doesn't do anything.
yeah, instead of course, they have motion sensors already for this kind of thing. But like the wind blows, and a fern flies in front of it, and it's like, oh, have 27 pictures, and the rangers didn't like that, so now it's using Google's image recognition, and as you can see,
It's like, oh, I'm seeing an elephant. You're supposed to see an elephant. That's not
Yeah.
of interest. It's like, you're seeing a truck. You're not supposed to see a truck. Call the Rangers.
so now the big business will be truck mods to
We need
make
to-
them look like elephants.
We need to close the loop on this technology. We need an army of drones that are deployed when the truck is detected. So, like, just the poachers just swarmed with lethal
We're-
drones.
Well, the poachers would just shoot down the drones.
We're one
and take
step
them on.
closer
You send
to
a-
Jurassic Park.
You send a swarm. So it's like, okay, you shot
like-
down 5 or 6, but there's 20 more on
They
the
get
way.
one of those microwave guns.
This is what they did in Jurassic Park. Like, but the thing was is that they were always counting for the exact number of dinosaurs, not potentially more dinosaurs.
It would be good if we always knew the exact number of dinosaurs in Africa.
Yeah, we're elephants. That's how you protect against how many elephants are on the.
Well, I can tell you the exact number of robotic bullet trains that exist in China.
Well,
And that's...
it's a good thing you qualified with that within China.
Yeah,
The Independent has the article, China to launch self-driving bullet trains that will travel at 350 kilometers per hour. These are unmanned. They've already been testing it unmanned. And apparently the robot AI software, whatever, is good enough to maintain an exact, precise schedule by adjusting the speed of the train up or down to maintain schedule when it leaves the station to arrive at precisely the time it needs to.
They made a statement that somehow this wasn't going to cost jobs this year.
this year, yeah, 2020, lots of jobs gone.
Not to be outdone, the Aussies have their own version.
Well,
which-
technically, China's trying to outdo them, right?
Yeah, I think this one came first, but it doesn't have passengers.
This is the Australian autonomous train is being called the world's largest robot because it's basically an automated rail system. This is for cargo and stuff like that, I think.
Mining.
Yeah.
So they have these mining operations that are on these really remote parts of Australia, and they built this giant train track to bring things back and forth.
The really low part of the map to get the redstone and the diamonds. Deep level.
What was that game that was based in Australia where you stole the oranges?
Oh, Hurt World.
Yeah,
Hurt World. Yeah.
they should add a Steam workshop
need
for
to
that.
eat.
It was a survival game. Like every now and your character, like there was no like meter. Your character would just whisper, "I need to eat."
Well, now you've got a car that will do it.
Yeah, and this will be super useful in Hurt World because sometimes you are
Because there are no
starving,
vehicles in Hurt
and
World.
you can just open up your app and get whatever you want.
Yeah, DoorDash and GM's cruise team. I'm giving the headline is terrible. DoorDash and
some bad ones
GM's
this
cruise team up to pilot food delivery via self-driving cars. So self-driving cars, you want some fast food place doesn't deliver, that's cool, we got that. Because Uber Eats is a thing. This is just the automated version of that.
But how upsetting is it going to be when the Waymo cars aren't carrying anything? They're just testing. Well, what happens when the Neo-Luddites attack the car that's got your Taco Bell in it?
See, I wasn't thinking that's where you were going with that. I was thinking of like, picture the scene. It's a crowded, Wendy's drive-through. You're working the drive-through. You got the speaker. The next car comes through, and they're ordering, and it sounds a lot like Siri. And it's like, wow, this person sounds a lot like Siri. And then they drive around, and it's just an empty car, and a little credit card comes out of a dispense slot, and it's like, okay, and it's like, please take the credit card, and it's Siri's voice, and you take the credit card and you run it, and then you put the credit card back, and then you just put the food in the driver's seat, and you're done.
There is no way you're going to physically give your credit card to it. That would be so much
overhead.
People would just steal it. No, there's going to be. I suspect there'll be like 3 or 4 parking spaces that are flagged for
self-driving,
DoorDash or whatever, and these guys will pull up and then they'll bring it out.
McDonald's is already doing that. You can remote order. I mean, you yourself will still have to go pick it up, but like if you had this system around,
do you drive through the drive-through or do you just go to a special spot?
There's a spot.
Yeah, see,
and they're marked.
I bet they'll prioritize that too. Like
Probably.
the plebs that are sitting in the drive-through line will have to wait for them to make the order for the.
What a time to be alive.
There'll be a little bit of a premium.
Speaking of people that are going to have a hard time, let's talk art forgers.
I thought Krista would be excited about this story, but she just crapped all over
question how well it works. Now, this said, 80% accuracy rate?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so this AI can spot art forgeries by looking at one brush stroke.
My thing is, so like when you'd obviously need like the original work to look at, but like how you photograph the work or like how you scan it and like just light conditions, all kinds of things can change like minor aspects of how it looks. Like if you look up any famous painting, if you look it up in Google Images, there's going to be a lot of variations in the color because different photographers will get different things.
Well, I think this is one of those situations where they take like the bot itself takes a ton of pictures and it uses one of those algorithms where it's like looking at each picture and comparing it and throwing some away because of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it comes down to a very good approximation of what it is under different conditions.
I don't think it'll be perfect. I think you'll still need like an art historian to look at it to verify. But
I don't think it's supposed to be the final word. But in a lot of the cases, it immediately found the problem. And here's the cool thing about it: they built it so a lot of these AI systems, as we talked about, are especially the learning AIs are black boxes. We know that they're learning, but we don't understand what's going on.
We don't know how they're learning.
But this one is built to be very, like give a lot of feedback. It's like, this is why I think this is fake.
Yeah.
And it tells the people.
So art forgers are going to get real good. It's like we need to make a movie that's like the art forger and like the AI scientists, and they make all kinds of money because their AI is helping the forgery be better.
It's got to be like deep fakes, right?
Yeah.
Where they have to start using AI to forge art.
Yeah. Or at least to contribute.
So, but is that bad for the world? If you could get a perfect stroke for stroke Van Gogh, wouldn't that be cool?
What if we can get some industrial robots? Like use the AI to train the control of the industrial robot, so the industrial robot is exactly mimicking. Wouldn't it be cool to see how like one of the master painters actually painted a work, even if it is in robotics?
They kind of do. They can. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can kind of tell that already.
That would be
how they like X-ray. They do like X-rays and stuff of it to see the underpainting and like how they thumbnailed it. Like they'll look at the sketchbooks.
Somebody needs to get the Disney animatronics guys on the phone because that could be a destination vacation. It's like let's go and
Well, let's not get the Hall of Presidents guys. Have you seen Trump?
He looks just like Hillary. I don't understand how that could have happened.
I think that's a great idea, and it's going to be amazing when the bottom falls out of the art industry.
That would actually. Man, I could get that chicken riding a lizard from there's a chicken riding a lizard at the gallery down the street, and I want it. It's made with a special gourd.
Well, listen, the time's running out.
I know, I got to get it. The art gallery's going out, so.
Well, the AI, they find forgeries, but sometimes they do more important work, and we've talked. How many different medical things have they figured out at this point? It's like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So add one more to the list. It's brain hemorrhages.
The Massachusetts General's AI can spot brain hemorrhages as accurately as humans. So, nice. This is going to be great for insurance companies.
Krista, you mentioned that along with raptors, brain hemorrhage is one of your big fears.
Yeah, like or aneurysms where it's like you have that ticking time bomb in your head and you don't know about it, and then all of a sudden you're dead.
But see, I think that's kind of
It's
like...
not a big fear, but it's something I think about.
That doesn't scare me at all because I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of dying. And if it's just like...
Instant in your
lights are
sleep,
out,
yeah. Easy.
That sounds like, hey, worst things have happened, right? And one of those things are drone disruptions. Remember Gatwick Airport?
Poor Britain. They
Just
can't catch a
last
break.
week. And that was a big story. I imagine it was a much bigger story over there than it was here.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine that this guy couldn't have seen that and maybe thought about his actions.
It's like the Severn Bridge shuts down as drone flown from tower. So they got the guy who was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be on the bridge, and he flew a drone from the bridge. So they shut down traffic. And, you read this story and you really think it's like, wow, that guy's just an idiot. And it reads like the guy was thinking, oh, man, I saw the thing at the Gatwick Airport. I got this drone. They're going to outlaw using drones around this kind of thing. I'd better go get some footage off the drone before they really outlaw it. It's like, guy, you're too late.
There's gonna be a clickbait thumbnail with that guy in it with an emoji, and it's like, I got arrested for flying a drone.
Top 5 reasons you shouldn't fly a drone from a bridge.
Story time. I got arrested for flying a drone.
But you say there was a part of the bridge he shouldn't have been on. It was the highest point.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure even without the drone, if a human is standing at the highest point of a bridge,
You're thinking that's a suicide
they
risk.
always shut it down.
Yeah.
So,
Oops.
not a smart move. I don't know what that crime would be. I think it was like
Public nuisance.
Yeah. So that's probably a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah,
Or whatever
that's not
UK
terrible.
equivalent.
Like whenever they catch whoever did that at the Gatwick Airport, which would be funny if it was actually law enforcement, they'll probably string them up by their toenails.
Or just black side them, just disappear them. Oh, we never did find those guys. Oh. Well, another problem in the UK is the police use of social media.
Apparently, yeah.
The police have criticized. Police
were criticized.
Yeah, for asking public to choose which village to patrol via Twitter. It's like I read that headline and it just.
There's been some. That one's not bad, but there have been some weird ones this week.
It was a great bed one. They won. So that meant that they got patrol that afternoon. And
If you're gonna rob a house in what was it, Wharton? Yeah,
that's
that would
the
be
place
a good
to
day.
be. Yeah.
That's some Aldburn. That's some terrible names. But yeah, they pretty much broadcast where the police presence would be, and people were quick to tell them what a bad idea that was, and they seemed to be very wounded by that.
Oh,
They're like, don't make fun of us.
We were just trying to be more engaging with the public. It's
Just wanted to engage with the community. Now,
Like the kids.
one saying that you hear a lot, and it's certainly true, is that when seconds count, police are minutes away.
It's a common phrase around here.
But in this situation, more than a few minutes.
An astronaut sparks panic after accidentally dialing 911 from space, sending NASA into a frenzy. So the calls from the International Space Station are patched in through a control room. So the police thought that the 911 had been dialed from the control room. Like NASA was put on full alert. The astronaut didn't even know anything really had happened until the next day when he got an email that was like, "Did you accidentally dial 911?" And he's like, "Oh, I might have."
Well,
Astronaut,
when you
smart
think
man.
about it, the system is. Someone could have maybe seen this flaw coming up. You dial 9 to get outside line, meaning Earth in this situation, which is pretty common for a phone system, and 011
For an international call.
for a call, and so he just missed the 0.
Oops.
How dare he make a mistake?
911 from the space station. It's like, "Oh, don't worry, officers are en route to your location." It's like, "I don't think so." And like, you're calling Elon Musk to get somebody up here.
Well, if you didn't notice, we've moved on to the nonsense section, and this story is
It sounds worse than it is when you just read the headline.
well, is it?
Saudi women to get divorce confirmation by text message. This is an improvement over their current situation where they
Yes.
could be divorced and not even know it. They only recently learned to drive. They only recently are permitted to drive. And every time we talk about Saudi Arabia, I have to point out Queen Elizabeth. She trolled King Abdullah by driving him around. And
Like
then,
a crazy person purposely driving bad. Like,
and then after that, women get the right to vote in Saudi Arabia, or to drive in Saudi Arabia. So I mean,
well, this is so what men would typically do. So like they would be married, and then they would decide, I want out. But instead of saying anything to their wives, they would just up and disappear one day. And the court systems were like, okay, you can't do that. So now whenever you file a divorce proceeding,
Well, you can still do it.
The wife gets text.
Well, she can request alimony that way.
Yeah. Well, in a society like that, you kind of have to because they can't do anything. They can't, what was it? They can't start a business.
The list
they can't.
Of things
Yeah.
Okay. You need a husband, father,
Or brother.
or some other kind of male guardian. I don't know how that works. To get a passport, travel abroad, get married, open a bank account, start certain businesses, get elective surgery, or leave prison.
So it's one of those things like, I kind of understand why they have alimony in that society because how are you supposed to survive otherwise?
I'm surprised that they do, though.
I wonder if there's anybody that is still in prison because they got like a jaywalking ticket or something and nobody's just come to pick them up.
There was no male guardian to pick them up.
You got to write letters asking just random men, so please come and be my guardian.
That's terrible.
That's
awful.
That's a weird one. And it's also weird to think about. So we are allies with them, and we are very protective of people who talk bad about them. And they very briefly headed up the UN Human Rights Council. Think about that.
Well, human being men.
Women.
I feel like Ron Howard should be narrating that.
They were a leader in human rights. They really weren't.
In this country, for better or for worse, we do give women rights. But we may also give some more rights to our furry friends.
New Jersey lawmakers may consider giving animals attorneys in court. This is after a really egregious case of a guy abusing a dog. And so they're like, maybe we should appoint public defenders for animals to argue that people that have abused animals should face harsher sentences.
They always joke that like the public defenders are the C student lawyers, like they're the worst. But imagine it's like you're picking up a girl in a bar and she's like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" "I'm a lawyer." Like, "Oh, do you work at a major law firm?" "No, I defend animals."
Bird law. You're doing bird law.
Defend animals as a public defender.
Some people would probably like that. That'd probably actually be a good pickup line.
Well, yeah, I guess for
you
like
defend animals?
hippie girls,
Yeah,
that would be huge. But she's like probably a PETA crazy. You don't want to.
No,
be involved in that. Not even for one night. Well, Wendell, you've intimated that you've hit saturation with your distaste for Fallout 76.
I tried, and it's just...
You tried so hard. You put a lot of hours in.
Not a lot, but kind of.
I feel like you probably gave it more of a chance than most people did.
I really did.
And it's a good indication of how quickly they're losing their player base, which might explain this weird policy.
Fallout 76 cheaters can get back into the game by writing a heartfelt essay for Bethesda.
About why cheating is wrong.
Yeah, so if you get caught cheating and you get banned, you can write an essay and they'll maybe let you start playing again. The online stuff with it it doesn't add anything, and if anything, it just makes the game more tedious.
Yeah, and what do you think? I mean, there's got to be a huge recidivism rate there, though, right?
Yeah, well,
you're gonna cheat again.
Yeah. It seems likely.
Well, if you get caught and all they do is give you a slap on the wrist, absolutely, you're going to cheat again.
I mean, they don't even have really good inventory management stuff. Because, you can sort your inventory by weight, but you don't really know how much something weighs because you might have, 100 of something. And so it's hard to know what's taking it because you have a limited amount of space. And so it's really hard to know, what you need to keep, what you need to throw away, and, what crafting items are rare. You get kind of an idea of what crafting items are rare and which ones are not rare, but it's just I didn't sign up for that. I just want to explore the wasteland and have some stories and stuff. I don't want to be micromanaging my inventory for
that's the game
3 hours.
Micromanagement simulator.
It really is terrible.
Well, for this next story, I'm reminded of the great Frank Reynolds from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who said, "When I die, just throw me in the trash." And I kind of feel
what
like
a legend.
That.
Yeah, I don't really care. A lot of people are hung up on I think, in most cases, though, it's not the dead person who cared. It's the family of the dead person. But it does seem like it's kind of unsustainable to keep burying people in these caskets that seal them away and keep them preserved for, 50 years. Or
Long
whatever.
after anyone cares.
And cremation seems like a good alternative, but they're also, it puts the greenhouse gases or carbon dioxide or whatever. So what's the plan? Well, the hippies in Washington have got a solution, or so they claim.
Composting. Yeah. So look at that, NBC News. Washington could become the first state to legalize human composting. They can grow a tree on you. It turns out that it's actually kind of tricky to turn humans into fertilizer
because
safely.
you're full of icky, nasty stuff, and if you sprinkle it on your food garden, you may get the icky, nasty stuff in the living.
Look at this stock photo. Like, is that the best one?
Is that Aunt Edna?
Yeah, that's definitely not Aunt Edna. That's just a handful of peat or something.
So they claim that, yes, recomposition, which involves placing bodies in a vessel and hastening their decomposition into a nutrient-dense soil. So if you get cremated, they give your loved ones an urn with some of your ashes. They don't give you all the ashes. There's a dirty trick to that business. They sift out like the horrible bone shards and stuff.
Yeah.
Throw that away, and then they give you some nice ashes. Some of which is probably the box they put you in as well. But here, you get like a pallet of dirt, and that's grandma. And you can garden with her if you want to.
Plant a tree so she can watch over you, Fallout style. You remember that guy in Fallout that's like part tree, part human?
A tree or flowers. I still, even though they say that you could, I would feel uncomfortable putting this on like a vegetable garden.
Well,
it's like you just don't know.
Yeah, right. Even if it was perfectly safe, eating grandma as a tomato.
Something that had been grown in her body.
Distasteful.
Yeah.
There was I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was Method Man and Red Man. And if you grew weed using the ashes of someone who died and then smoked that weed, they could communicate with you from the afterlife.
That's a deep,
what an amazing
thought.
I'm starting to think that some of my premises for movies are not actually as dumb as I think.
And they used that. One of their friends was really smart, and he helped them cheat their way into Harvard.
Of course.
Yeah. So they would have to get high before every
I think I know what movie you're talking about. I don't know if I saw it, but I know what you're
I
talking
can't
about.
remember the name of the movie. It's actually pretty funny.
I'm sure the engagement challenge is going to be just, good Lord.
I think Zim was talking to me about that movie once, but I can't remember the name of it.
Well, are you ready? Is anybody ready
Can anybody really be ready?
for the Super Blood Wolf Moon?
What a cool band name, right?
USA Today has your guide. So if you're confused about the Super Blood Wolf Moon that's about to happen,
Descend upon
thing,
us.
Yeah, here's your guide. So here's a guide for the Super Wolf Blood Moon. Something Native Americans. I don't know.
Well, it's a little underwhelming. Supermoon is the height of the apogee, meaning it's the biggest and brightest in the sky that it will be for that cycle. Blood moon, it's literally red because of a total eclipse. So total eclipse doesn't hide the moon, it just filters the light through the atmosphere, which takes out the blue. Wolf moon is just the first full moon of January. You know why? Because the wolves are hungry. It's the winter.
Winter is coming.
Dehibernating.
And they're howling at the gates. They want your children. And so, yeah, that's kind of things like January 19 or something like that. So if you're excited about that.
Probably would have been more appropriate to cover that in the January 19 episode of the news. But hey, you can prepare now.
Oh,
We got to give them time. You got to take some
You
time
got to
off
find
work.
someone to sacrifice. I mean, that's going to take at least a week.
You gotta
Have to order someone from
get
Amazon.
some foster children.
Oh,
Well, I think it's been 3 weeks now, right, that we've covered the saga of Soulja Boy and his entry
The
into the electronics market. And he has quite a boast this week.
Yeah, it's like his sales report, he says he sold 5 million consoles in December. Bad news, Nintendo owns SouljaGame.com.
So he made a tweet. Now, I don't claim to be a hip person, but I do not understand this phrase. I had to boss up. I didn't have a choice. Now, he's talking about dealing with Nintendo and giving in to them. What does boss up mean in that
in
context?
that context, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Boss up usually is used as like, kind of like saying man up, but like,
I had to own up to my mistake.
yeah, take responsibility.
Well, that
yeah.
makes a little bit of sense. Yeah, and then he put the little boy emoji.
Look, it's the I don't know.
Well, he's Soulja Boy.
Well, it's funny because his previous tweets that was like, "Hey, there might be something wrong with your intellectual property here." He was very angry and explicit and like a lot more like, you guys like.
How dare you speak to me?
Yeah,
Do you know who I am?
I'm Soldier Boy.
yeah, exactly.
Well, the hip new Netflix movie is Bird Box. People seem to really like it, despite it being bad, which is not uncommon in the movie world. That happens a lot.
It's a horror movie with Sandra Bullock.
But it's kicked off the latest quote unquote challenge.
So in the movie, you have to wear a blindfold, I guess.
Because the monsters
Right.
will
If you
scare
look
you.
at the monsters, you will go crazy.
So Netflix warns against the Bird Box challenge as the dangerous trend goes viral. So you blindfold yourself and try to not fall down an escalator, I guess is what that stock photo was.
But you agree to a set amount of time. So for 24 hours, you're going to go Bird Box.
Yeah, see, I did this as like a middle schooler when I learned about Helen Keller. I came home, got off the bus. My mom wasn't home from work yet. And I didn't blindfold myself, but I closed my eyes and tried to navigate the house.
Did you stop up your ears?
No, I couldn't do that.
Well, that's a weak
It was a weak challenge, but I felt like I needed to understand Helen Keller better for my assignment.
I think you've just discovered the newest challenge, Krista. The Helen Keller Challenge.
Yeah.
Now, that's where you...
Go into a sensory deprivation tank.
well, you...
No, or she could still feel. That's how they learned to talk to her.
No,
Didn't
this-
you learn about Helen Keller in middle school?
You got to do hardcore mode with the Helen Keller Challenge, first of all. You got to do something to explode your eardrums. Get a gun and just fire off next to your head.
Until you can't hear anymore.
And then get some of those like really hardcore pupil dilating eye drops and just go hard. And
Oh, you
then,
could just blindfold yourself.
Full
Super
Helen
glue
Keller-
eye drops
No.
probably work well.
Christy, you got to commit to this. You can take a blindfold off. But if you want to go full Helen Keller for a couple of weeks, then you'll do it this way.
I was just trying to do it before my mom got home from work, so she
Couple
wouldn't
of
see how
weeks,
stupid I am.
permanent hearing loss.
Those eardrums will grow back.
Well, then you'll get to learn the cool sign language she
They're
developed with her
resilient.
teacher.
Well, everybody loves bacon so much that it's a meme. I'm tired of the bacon meme, but it is delicious.
It is good.
And you can't fight against it. And the pre-cooked bacon is an amazing invention. Even though I know I can just taste the cancer. And it turns out
That is
You were
actual
right.
literal cancer.
It's nitrates, so stop adding cancer-causing chemicals to our bacon, experts tell the meat industry. But it turns out that nitrates weren't actually a part of pork products for like 25 years. It's a fairly recent thing.
yeah, they claim it's important to kill certain bacteria in the curing, but other people are saying it
Like
just
botulism.
it's just the color.
Yeah, some people have said it's just the color. So.
I would eat whatever color bacon you give me.
Yeah.
I think it's probably like a gray.
It talks about how like a lot of prosciutto doesn't have this yet, and like prosciutto is some of the most delicious stuff on
Well,
earth.
the Parma ham.
Yeah.
Like there's a special ham that only comes from one place. It's like champagne.
And they don't use nitrates either, which is good.
And they literally make that stuff with mold.
It's so good.
So
I'm down.
I think maybe we should
We should
embrace
get
it.
some.
We should start a company called Gray Bacon. Gray Matter Bacon.
Cancer-free bacon.
And then they find out it's
FDA might have a
cancerous
problem
some
with
other way.
Yeah.
This is
Speaking of cancer, let's talk about Twitch.
Krista is very sensitive to Twitch thoughts. Very sensitive. Do you think once you're married you'll become even more prudish about
No.
Twitch? You gonna cut your hair short and
No.
complain to the manager?
No, I don't like short hair. I'll probably have like long hair even when I'm old and gray.
But one rung, or maybe several rungs under the Twitch thoughts, are the Twitch abusers.
Oh yeah.
I would say they're higher up in the terrible. Like the other ones, I understand
when
why
I
they
say
do it.
when I say lower, I mean like lower life form.
Lower life. Oh, okay, way lower life form.
A streamer who allegedly beat his wife during stream is back on Twitch. So,
I thought I saw this video, but it might have been someone else. I'm not sure.
I imagine this happens a lot. Actually.
Yeah.
So the story here is that this guy's a Fortnite streamer. I think he's fairly successful. I really don't know. But the wife was unhappy that he was spending so much time playing Fortnite, and she had just prepared a meal and wanted him to come to dinner. And then all this happened off camera, but you heard a loud crack, her crying, and then screaming, "Did all of you hear that? That was him hitting me." Yeah. So his case is still in the Australian courts awaiting trial. But after a ban, and 2 weeks later, he's back on Twitch.
That's just the way Twitch is. That makes me so angry. They have all these terms of service and like you can't do this and you can't do that. And they'll enforce that with little streamers. But it's like as soon as you get kind of big, they're like, oh, no, you can go back.
What do you think we could get away with in our Twitch stream?
Probably almost nothing.
Literally nothing.
No.
Yeah,
They
we're
did-
not that popular.
A couple of tweets did point out that they've got the, like the speech rules. I don't think it's necessarily obscenities, but like, like if you say tranny, for example.
Well, he was like screaming at her. At least if it's the video I'm thinking.
No. They're talking about that was not what they got him for. But if you violate that speech rule, you're gone for at least 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
But hitting your wife on stream,
Totally
2
A-okay.
weeks.
Yeah.
That's disconcerting.
Yeah. Very disconcerting.
Do you think this reduced or dramatically increased his view count?
Probably increased.
It probably increased because I didn't know who this guy was before I saw a clip of it on YouTube.
Which begs the question, how long until people are faking domestic abuse on Twitch?
That's so messed up. Jeez.
Well, we've come full circle with your whole, because like that's the whole thing with the thoughts is just,
Well, like I
everything's
said,
fake.
the thoughts I understand. Like that makes sense. They're just monetizing a system that's in place. Like it supports that. I don't like it, but it's fine. I get what they're doing. But like this is just scummy. This is just shitty human beingness.
You know what? You just gave me an incredible idea. So if you're a Twitch thought, and you've got another hot friend, you should fake
Hitting your friend?
a fight. No, like, rolling around on the ground like cat fighting. But then, slowly, that goes into making out.
Of course. As it often does.
Your view count will skyrocket, I guarantee.
Do you get, I don't know, what are the terms like if you violate their no sexual stuff? Like do you think it's longer or shorter than what this guy got?
Shorter.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It should be shorter than what this guy got, but like it would be kind of hilarious.
There have been a
more.
number of wardrobe malfunctions that were only like a day or two banned that resulted in
But-
like double viewership.
See, that's
Yeah.
the thing, though. How sexual? I mean, like, just nudity, I would think, probably not that big a deal.
Doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's another week in the books.
Woo!
Welcome to January.
January needs to go back. I'm not ready for December to be over yet.
I'm kind of ready for spring. I'm waiting for the snow to come, but like I'm kind of ready just for it to be warm again.
I kind
Let us know.
of like where we are now, which is oddly warm days.
Yeah, like spring.
But I don't have to face the specter of lawn care yet.
Oh yeah, he has a house now, so he has to deal with that. How much yard you got?
1.2
Something.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
That's a pretty decent sized yard.
Yeah, gonna have to buy the zero turn.
Oh no.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Someday we'll mod that zero turn to be robotic.
And then chop off someone's leg. It's fine.
Probably insurance for that.
We won't be voiding the warranty. How does that?